When Michael Jordan stood at that championship parade in 1993, confetti falling like snow over 2 million screaming fans in Chicago, nobody knew his life was about to be destroyed by a lie. In just 3 days, the greatest basketball player in the world would be blamed for a man's death. His name would be dragged through the mud. His career would crumble. And the worst part? He was completely innocent. A youth center director named Coach Raymond Mills had just been killed in a suspicious fire. Within hours, photographs appeared showing Michael Jordan in illegal gambling dens with dangerous criminals. The media exploded. Every newspaper, every TV station, every radio show said the same thing. Michael Jordan's gambling debts led bad people to Coach Mills. Jordan was responsible for an innocent man's death. But 12-year-old Marcus Chen and his father David didn't believe it. David was a journalist who looked at those photographs and saw something nobody else noticed. Something was wrong. The shadows didn't match. The details didn't make sense. Someone was lying. When David refused to publish the story, he was fired. His family lost everything. Their house, their friends, their reputation. For 5 years, they lived in poverty, while David obsessed over proving Michael Jordan was framed. Everyone thought he was crazy. Everyone thought he'd thrown his life away for nothing. But David kept digging, and what he found was darker than anyone imagined. A powerful businessman named Dominic Kowalski was recruiting poor kids from Chicago neighborhoods, training them as soldiers, and sending them to die in illegal military operations overseas. Coach Mills discovered the truth and was going to expose it with Michael Jordan's help. So Kowalski had Mills killed and created fake photographs to destroy Jordan's reputation before he could speak out. The conspiracy went deeper than anyone knew. Corrupt FBI agents, dirty cops, fake evidence created with technology most people didn't even know existed in 1993, and a family willing to risk everything to uncover the truth. Marcus watched his mother get kidnapped. He saw his father lose his career. He lived through 5 years of mockery and poverty, but he never stopped believing that the truth mattered. Then, in one explosive press conference, everything changed. The fake photographs were exposed. The real killer was revealed. And Michael Jordan finally told the world what really happened that terrible week in 1993. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. At the press conference, Marcus's mother walked in with the FBI and said she'd been working against her own family. She stood at the microphone and told the cameras that everything her husband believed was a lie, that Michael Jordan was guilty after all, that Marcus and David were the real conspiracy theorists. Was she telling the truth? Had she betrayed them? Or was something else going on? Watch this whole video to find out how a 12-year-old boy, his determined father, and the greatest basketball player in history brought down a killer who thought he was untouchable. This is the true story of how one family's courage changed everything. And trust me, you won't believe how this really ends. The confetti fell like snow over downtown Chicago. Red, white, and blue paper swirled through the June air as 2 million people packed the streets, screaming until their voices cracked. Marcus Chen stood on his father's shoulders, his small hands gripping David Chen's head for balance, his eyes locked on the double-decker bus rolling slowly down LaSalle Street. There he was, Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player in the world. 3 championships in 3 years. Marcus's hero. His poster covered Marcus's bedroom wall. His jersey hung in Marcus's closet, number 23, still crisp and clean, because Marcus only wore it on special occasions. Today was special. The Chicago Bulls had done it again. "Dad, Dad, can you see him?" Marcus shouted over the roar of the crowd. "I see him, buddy," David called back, his voice strained from holding his 12-year-old son high. "Wave. Maybe he'll wave back." Marcus waved with both hands, nearly falling off his father's shoulders. Jordan stood at the front of the bus, the Larry O'Brien championship trophy gleaming in his hands, his famous smile wide and genuine. For just a second, maybe Marcus imagined it, Jordan seemed to look right at him and nod. Marcus's heart exploded with joy. "Did you see that?" Marcus screamed. "He saw me. He nodded at me." David laughed, carefully lowering Marcus back to the ground. The crowd pressed in from all sides, but David kept a protective hand on his son's shoulder. As a sports journalist for the Chicago Tribune, David had credentials that got them close to the parade route, close enough to feel like they were part of something magical. "Remember this day, Marcus?" David said, his voice softer now, almost drowned out by the celebration. "Remember how it feels to believe in someone, to see them achieve something impossible?" Marcus nodded, still watching the bus disappear down the street. "I'm going to be just like him someday." "I know you will," David said. But something in his father's voice had changed. Marcus looked up and saw his dad staring at something in his hand. A manila envelope, bent and crumpled from the crowd. "What's that?" Marcus asked. David's face had gone pale. His jaw clenched in a way Marcus recognized. The way it looked when his father was working on a difficult story, when something didn't make sense. "Nothing, buddy. Just work stuff." But David was lying. Marcus could tell. The celebration continued around them, but David was already moving, pulling Marcus through the crowd with urgent steps. "Come on, we need to go." "But the parade isn't over." "Now, Marcus." They pushed through the ocean of people, Marcus struggling to keep up with his father's long strides. By the time they reached David's car parked 6 blocks away, Marcus was out of breath and confused. "Dad, what's wrong?" David sat in the driver's seat, the envelope open on his lap, photographs spread across the dashboard. His hands were shaking. Marcus had never seen his father's hands shake before. "Dad? Get in the car, son!" Marcus climbed into the passenger seat, trying to see the photographs. David quickly gathered them up, but not before Marcus caught a glimpse of one image. A man who looked like Michael Jordan, standing in a dark room with other men, money on a table. The drive home was silent. David's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. Marcus wanted to ask 100 questions, but something told him to stay quiet. When they got home, David went straight to his office and closed the door. Marcus heard him on the phone, his voice low and urgent. Marcus pressed his ear to the door. "Can't be real. There's no way. I don't care who sent it. I need to verify. Tomorrow?" "No, tonight. I'll come to you." Marcus stepped back as the door opened. David stood there, his tie loosened, his eyes red. "Marcus, I need you to do something for me." "Okay. I need you to know that sometimes people try to hurt the people we admire. They spread lies because they're jealous or angry, or because they want something." Marcus's stomach tightened. "What are you talking about?" David knelt down, putting his hands on Marcus's shoulders. "I might have to write a story that people won't like, a story about Michael Jordan, but I need you to trust me. I'm going to find the truth, the real truth, no matter what anyone else says. Is Michael Jordan in trouble?" David's eyes closed for a moment. "I don't know yet, but I promise you, I won't write anything unless I know it's true. Can you trust me?" Marcus nodded, even though fear was creeping into his chest. "I trust you." That was Friday. By Monday morning, Marcus's world had shattered. He woke up to shouting downstairs. His parents never shouted. Marcus crept to the top of the stairs and listened. "You can't refuse to run this story." That was a man's voice, loud, angry. Marcus recognized it. Mr. Patterson, his father's editor at the Tribune. "I won't run it because it's not verified," David said, his voice steady but firm. "Those photographs could be manipulated. The timeline doesn't match. I have questions. Every major outlet in the country is running it right now. Turn on the TV, David. This is the biggest story of the year, and you're sitting on it because of questions?" "I'm sitting on it because it might not be true." Marcus ran to the living room and turned on the television. His mother, Lynn, was already there, her hand over her mouth, tears running down her cheeks. On every channel, the same story, the same photographs his father had received, the same headlines. Michael Jordan's gambling scandal linked to deadly Chicago fire. Youth Center director dies in blaze. Jordan's debts blamed. The dark side of a champion, how gambling destroyed an innocent man. Marcus felt sick. He watched footage of a burned building, firefighters spraying water on smoking ruins. Then a photograph of a smiling black man in his 50s, wearing a whistle around his neck, surrounded by children in basketball uniforms. The news anchor's voice. Coach Raymond Mills, director of the Southside Youth Center, died Thursday night when the facility was deliberately set on fire. Sources close to the investigation suggest Mills had information about NBA superstar Michael Jordan's gambling debts. The theory is that people connected to Jordan's gambling activities targeted Mills as a warning. While Jordan has not been charged with any crime, questions are mounting about his involvement in underground gambling circles and whether his actions led to this tragedy. Marcus couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. Not his hero, not Michael Jordan. Upstairs, the shouting continued. "If you don't write this story, David, you're done at the Tribune. Do you understand? Done. Then I'm done." Silence. Marcus heard footsteps. Mr. Patterson appeared at the top of the stairs, his face red with fury. He saw Marcus watching from the living room and shook his head in disgust before storming out of the house. David came down the stairs slowly, looking older than he had just 3 days ago at the parade. "Dad?" Marcus's voice cracked. "Is it true? Did Michael Jordan? Did he?" David walked over and turned off the television. He sat down next to Marcus and pulled him close. "I don't know what's true yet, Marcus, but I know this. I looked at those photographs all weekend. Something's wrong with them. The shadows don't match. The timestamps don't make sense. Someone is lying." He pulled back and looked into Marcus's eyes. "I'm going to find out who, and I'm going to prove it, even if it costs me everything." Marcus wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that Michael Jordan was still his hero, that the man who nodded at him during the parade wasn't responsible for someone's death. But as the days passed and the story grew bigger, as every newspaper, every TV show, every radio station repeated the accusations, Marcus felt his belief crumbling. 2 weeks later, David Chen was fired from the Chicago Tribune for refusing to participate in the coverage. 1 month later, Michael Jordan announced his retirement from basketball, and Marcus learned that sometimes heroes fall. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the truth was buried deeper than anyone imagined, and it would take 7 years to dig it out. 6 months had changed everything. Marcus sat in the back of his 7th grade classroom, staring at his math textbook without seeing the numbers. His stomach growled. He'd skipped breakfast again, not because he wasn't hungry, but because he'd heard his parents arguing about money that morning and didn't want to add to their stress by asking for lunch money. "Marcus Chen, are you paying attention?" He looked up. Mrs. Roberts stood at the front of the class, chalk in hand, waiting for an answer to a question he hadn't heard. "Sorry, Mrs. Roberts. Could you repeat?" "Never mind." She turned back to the board with a sigh that made Marcus's cheeks burn. From 2 rows over, Derek Phillips snickered. Maybe if his dad actually had a job, he could afford to focus in school. A few kids laughed. Marcus's hands curled into fists under his desk. "That's enough, Derek," Mrs. Roberts said, but her voice lacked conviction. Everyone knew. The whole school knew that Marcus's father had been fired, knew that David Chen was the journalist who defended Michael Jordan while everyone else called for blood, knew that the Chens had gone from comfortable middle-class life to barely scraping by. The bell rang. Marcus grabbed his backpack and rushed out before anyone could say anything else. He had 15 minutes before his next class, enough time to find somewhere quiet to hide. The library was nearly empty. Marcus slipped into his usual corner behind the reference section and pulled out a worn notebook. Inside were newspaper clippings, every article about Michael Jordan from the past 6 months. Marcus didn't know why he kept collecting them, maybe because he needed to understand. Maybe because he hoped one day the story would change, but it never did. Jordan's retirement, running from scandal? Former Bulls star refuses to comment on youth center fire. Coach Mills's family still seeking answers. Marcus stared at a photograph of Coach Raymond Mills. The man had kind eyes, a warm smile. In every picture, he was surrounded by kids who looked like they'd found something worth believing in. Those kids had nowhere to go now. The Southside Youth Center was gone, and everyone blamed Michael Jordan. But Marcus's father didn't. David had spent the last 6 months obsessing over those photographs, filling cardboard boxes with notes and theories and photocopied documents. Their small apartment was slowly being taken over by his investigation, an investigation no one else cared about. "Why can't you just let it go?" Marcus had heard his mother plead 2 nights ago. "We've lost everything, David. Everything. Your job, our savings, our friends. And for what? To prove that some basketball player didn't do something? He retired anyway. He's gone. Because it matters, Lynn. His father's voice had been quiet but firm. Because someone is lying, and Coach Mills died. And if we let them get away with it, Coach Mills is dead. Nothing we do will bring him back. The argument had ended with his mother crying and his father disappearing into his makeshift office. Really just a corner of their bedroom with a folding table and lamp. Marcus closed his notebook as the 5-minute warning bell rang. He had English next. They were reading To Kill a Mockingbird. The irony wasn't lost on him, a story about a man falsely accused, while his own life revolved around the same theme. The rest of the school day crawled by. When the final bell rang, Marcus didn't go straight home. Instead, he took the bus to 63rd Street. His mother worked the afternoon shift at St. Bernard Hospital, and his father was at the South Side Gazette, the tiny neighborhood newspaper that had hired him for a fraction of his old salary, which meant Marcus had time. He walked 3 blocks to Oakwood Cemetery. The groundskeeper knew him by now, just nodded as Marcus passed through the gates. Marcus had been coming here once a week for the past month, always on Wednesdays when he knew he'd be alone. Coach Raymond Mills's grave was in the northeast section, near a large oak tree. The headstone was simple, his name, his dates, in a single line: he believed in every child. Fresh flowers sat at the base. Someone had been here recently. Marcus sat down on the grass, setting his backpack beside him. He didn't know why he came. He'd never met Coach Mills, but somehow sitting here made him feel closer to understanding what had happened, closer to his father's obsession. "You don't believe it either, do you?" Marcus jumped. An elderly black woman stood a few feet away, holding a small bouquet of carnations. She was thin, probably in her 70s, wearing a navy blue dress and a hat despite the December cold. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Marcus started to stand. "Stay, child." The woman moved closer, her movements slow but steady. "You've been coming here for weeks. I've seen you." Marcus felt his face flush. "I didn't mean to intrude. You're David Chen's boy, aren't you?" Marcus's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I know who your father is." The woman knelt down slowly, placing her flowers next to the others. "I know what he's trying to do. I'm Eleanor Washington. Coach Mills was my son." Marcus's breath caught. "Mrs. Washington, I'm so sorry about—" "Don't!" Her voice was gentle but firm. "Don't apologize for something you didn't do, and don't apologize for something Michael Jordan didn't do either." Marcus stared at her. "You don't think he did it?" Mrs. Washington looked at the headstone, her weathered hand touching the engraved letters of her son's name. "My Raymond called me the night before the fire. It was late, past midnight. He was excited about something, said he'd discovered proof of something big, something that would help a lot of kids." "Proof of what?" "He didn't say, but he mentioned a name." Mrs. Washington's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "He said, 'Mama, Mr. Jordan is a good man. People are going to try to hurt him because of what I found. But he's trying to help. He's not the enemy.'" Marcus felt goosebumps rise on his arms despite his winter coat. "He said that? About Michael Jordan?" "Those were his exact words." Mrs. Washington turned to look at Marcus, her eyes sharp and clear. "The next morning, my boy was dead, and within a week, those photographs appeared, and everyone started saying Mr. Jordan was responsible. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you tell the police?" Mrs. Washington's expression darkened. "Because I did tell them, child. I told them everything Raymond said, and you know what they told me? They said I was a grieving mother who was confused, that I was misremembering." She paused. "And then 2 men came to my house, said they were police, but they weren't in uniform. They told me that if I kept talking about what Raymond said, I might have an accident too. Just like my son." Marcus felt cold that had nothing to do with the weather. "They threatened you?" "They told me to stay quiet and stay safe. So I did. For 6 months, I've kept my mouth shut, going to church, tending my son's grave, and hating myself for being a coward." Mrs. Washington reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. "But then I saw your father's name in the paper, saw what standing up cost him, and I thought, if that man can lose everything for the truth, maybe I can be brave enough to speak it." She held out the envelope. Marcus took it with trembling hands. "What is this?" "Raymond's phone bill from the month before he died. I found it going through his things. Look at the calls from the last week. Marcus opened the envelope and pulled out the yellowed phone bill. His eyes scanned down the list of numbers and times. Most were local Chicago numbers, but 3 calls stood out, all to the same number, all in the final week before the fire. "What number is this?" Marcus asked. "I called it once, months ago, too scared to say anything when someone answered. But I recognized the voice." Mrs. Washington stood slowly, using the headstone for support. "That's Michael Jordan's private line. My son called him 3 times in the week before he died. The last call was 10 hours before the fire." Marcus stared at the paper, his mind racing. If Coach Mills had called Jordan the night before his death, if he'd said Jordan was a good man who was trying to help, then the whole story was wrong. Everything was wrong. "Why are you giving this to me? Because you're young enough to be brave and smart enough to know what to do with it?" Mrs. Washington adjusted her hat. "Give it to your father. Tell him Eleanor Washington is ready to tell her truth. Tell him Raymond's phone records prove my son and Mr. Jordan were in contact. That means they had a relationship no one knows about." "But what if—" Marcus hesitated. "What if the people who threatened you come back?" Mrs. Washington smiled sadly. "Child, I'm 74 years old. I've buried my husband and my only son. I've lived in fear for half a year. At some point, you realize that staying silent is its own kind of death." She started to walk away, then turned back. "Tell your father something else. Tell him Raymond said there were photographs, important photographs, but not the ones everyone's seen. Different ones. Raymond hid them somewhere safe." "Where?" Marcus called after her. "That's what your father needs to figure out." Marcus watched Mrs. Washington walk slowly through the cemetery until she disappeared behind the chapel. He looked down at the phone bill in his hands, then at Coach Mills' grave. "I'll figure it out," he whispered to the headstone. "I promise." He ran, all the way to the bus stop, clutching the envelope like it might disappear. The bus took forever, each stop feeling like an eternity. By the time Marcus burst through the door of the Southside Gazette, he was out of breath and his side ached. The newspaper office was tiny, just 3 desks crammed into what used to be a dry cleaning shop. His father sat at the desk farthest from the door, hunched over a typewriter that looked older than Marcus. "Dad!" David looked up, startled. "Marcus, what are you doing here? Is your mom—" "I met her. I met Mrs. Washington, Coach Mills's mother." David stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. The other 2 reporters, both elderly men who mostly wrote about local church events, looked over with interest. "Where?" David asked. "At the cemetery. She's been watching me. Dad, she knows things. Important things." Marcus thrust the envelope forward. "Coach Mills called Michael Jordan 3 times before he died. The last call was the night before the fire." David grabbed the envelope, his hands shaking exactly like they had 6 months ago at the parade. He pulled out the phone bill, his eyes scanning rapidly. This changes." David looked up at Marcus. "What exactly did she say?" Marcus told him everything, every word Mrs. Washington had spoken. When he finished, David sat down heavily, the phone bill still clutched in his hand. "There are other photographs," David murmured. "Raymond Mills hid photographs somewhere." One of the other reporters, Mr. Kowalski, wheeled his chair over. "David, you really think this is going somewhere? Everyone's moved on from the Jordan story." "Everyone's wrong," David said quietly. He looked at Marcus. "Son, do you understand what this means? If we pursue this, if we keep digging, things might get worse for us before they get better." Marcus thought about Derek Phillips' mocking voice, his mother's tears, the empty refrigerator at home, their apartment that smelled like mildew because they'd moved somewhere cheaper. Things were already worse, but he thought about Coach Mills's gravestone, about Mrs. Washington's courage, about his father's shaking hands holding that phone bill like it was made of gold. "We have to find the truth," Marcus said. "Right?" David smiled, the first real smile Marcus had seen in months. "Right." That night, Marcus's father spread the phone bill on their kitchen table. His mother came home from her shift at the hospital, exhausted and smelling like antiseptic. She started to make dinner, but stopped when she saw what they were looking at. "David, what is this?" "Evidence," David said. "Evidence that we're not crazy." Evidence that will get us killed, Lynn said quietly. But she didn't tell him to stop. She just made dinner, rice and scrambled eggs, because it was all they could afford, and listened while David explained what Marcus had learned. When he finished, Lynn was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached over and took her husband's hand. "If you do this, there's no going back." "I know. We could lose more than we've already lost." "I know. They threatened an old woman. They killed a good man. They might—" Her voice broke. "I know." Lynn looked at Marcus, then back at David. "Then we better make sure we do this right." That night, lying in bed, Marcus stared at the ceiling of his small room. His Michael Jordan poster was gone. He'd taken it down months ago, confused and angry and hurt. But in his closet, the jersey still hung. Number 23. He got up and pulled it out, running his fingers over the fabric. His father didn't believe Jordan was guilty. Coach Mills had said Jordan was a good man. Mrs. Washington was risking her life to speak the truth. Maybe heroes didn't fall. Maybe they were just waiting for someone brave enough to help them stand back up. Marcus hung the jersey on the back of his door where he could see it. Tomorrow he decided he would start paying attention in school again. He would stop hiding in the library. He would stop being ashamed of his father, because the truth was worth fighting for, even if it took 7 years to find it. 5 years later, Marcus Chen typed his name at the top of his college application essay and stared at the blank page on the computer screen. The cursor blinked at him like a heartbeat. Around him, the cluttered office of the South Side Gazette hummed with quiet activity. Mr. Kowalski arguing with a printer, Mrs. Patterson fact-checking obituaries, and his father on the phone, speaking in the low, urgent tone Marcus knew so well. "I understand, but if you could just look at the records one more time. Yes, I know it was 5 years ago. I understand. Thank you anyway." David hung up and made another note in one of his dozens of spiral notebooks. The investigation had consumed 5 years of their lives. 5 years of dead ends and slammed doors. 5 years of people hanging up or refusing to talk or suddenly not remembering anything useful. But they hadn't stopped. Marcus was 17 now, taller than his father, with broad shoulders from playing basketball at Washington High School. Not good enough for a scholarship, he knew that, but good enough to understand why people loved the game. Good enough to understand what Michael Jordan had meant to millions of people. Jordan had come back to basketball 2 years ago, playing for the Bulls again. The gambling scandal had faded from front-page news, becoming just another piece of his complicated legacy. Most people had moved on, but not the Chens. "Marcus, you're going to miss the application deadline staring at that screen," his father said without looking up from his notebook. "I don't know what to write." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "They want me to describe a challenge I've overcome. Where do I even start? How about the time Derek Phillips tried to fight you and you walked away?" Marcus smiled slightly. "That was 3 years ago. The time you got straight A's despite working here 20 hours a week? That's not dramatic enough for Northwestern." David finally looked up, his reading glasses sliding down his nose. In 5 years, he'd aged more than he should have. Gray streaked his hair now. Lines creased his forehead, but his eyes still had that sharp, determined look that never quite went away. "Write about learning that the truth is more important than being popular," David said. "Write about watching your mother work double shifts and never complaining. Write about understanding that integrity costs something, but silence costs more." Marcus nodded slowly. Before he could start typing, the bell above the office door chimed. A young woman walked in, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and a messenger bag slung over her shoulder. She looked around the cramped space with barely concealed disappointment. "I'm looking for David Chen," she said. David stood up. "That's me. How can I help you?" The woman walked over, pulling a business card from her pocket. "My name is Jessica Torres. I'm a graduate student at Northwestern journalism program. I'm doing my thesis on media coverage of celebrity scandals, and I wanted to talk to you about the Michael Jordan case from 1993. Marcus watched his father's expression carefully. Over the years, David had learned to be cautious. Too many journalists had come asking questions, then written articles that made him sound like a conspiracy theorist or a Jordan fanatic. What specifically do you want to know? David asked, his voice neutral. I want to know why you were the only major journalist who refused to run the story, and I want to know if you still believe Jordan was innocent. I never said he was innocent or guilty, David replied. I said the evidence didn't add up. There's a difference. Jessica pulled out a notebook, an old-fashioned paper one, like David's. Marcus appreciated that. I've read everything published about that case, every article, every investigation report. And you're right, the evidence doesn't add up. The photographs have inconsistencies. The timeline has gaps, but no one seems to care. People care about what confirms what they already believe, David said. Jordan had a gambling problem. That was known. A man died in a suspicious fire. That was tragic and real. Put them together in a story, and it feels true even if it isn't. But you lost your job because you didn't think it was true. I lost my job because I couldn't prove it was true, David corrected. There's a difference. Jessica sat down in the chair across from David's desk without being invited. Marcus liked her confidence. What if I told you I might be able to help you prove it? David exchanged a glance with Marcus. I'm listening. I have access to the Northwestern Digital Forensics Lab. We have equipment that didn't exist in 1993, software that can analyze digital images at the pixel level, detect manipulations, identify composite photographs. Jessica leaned forward. I read your articles from back then. You kept saying something looked wrong with the photographs. What if you were right? What if we could prove they were faked? Marcus's heart started beating faster. His father had said the same thing for 5 years, but no one had the technology to prove it. At least no one who was willing to help them. Why would you do this? David asked carefully. This could be controversial. Your professors might not. My thesis advisor is Dr. Yuki Tanaka. She's one of the best forensic photography experts in the country. She thinks media manipulation in the pre-digital era is understudied. Jessica pulled a folder from her bag. I showed her copies of the Jordan photographs. She said they have signatures of early digital manipulation, but she'd need the originals to be certain. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to a filing cabinet in the corner of the office. He unlocked it with a key he wore on a chain around his neck. Marcus knew that key was never more than a few feet from his father and pulled out a large envelope. I got these in 1993. Anonymous delivery. Every major outlet received copies the same day. David laid the photographs on his desk carefully, like they were evidence in a murder trial, which in a way they were. I've kept them locked up. I've analyzed them with every resource I could find, but I'm not an expert. Jessica put on a pair of thin gloves before touching the photographs. Another thing Marcus appreciated. She studied each one carefully, holding them up to the light, examining the edges and corners. These are high-quality prints, she murmured. Professional grade. Not the kind of thing you make at a drugstore photo counter. She pulled out her phone and took several pictures. Can I take these to Dr. Tanaka? I promise they'll be secured in the university lab. No one else will have access. David looked at Marcus. It was a look Marcus had seen before. His father asking permission, making sure Marcus was ready for whatever came next. Because whatever came next would affect both of them. Affect all of them. Marcus nodded. 3 days, David said to Jessica. I want them back in 3 days, and I want a full report on what you find. You'll have it. Jessica carefully placed the photographs in a protective sleeve and tucked them into her bag. She stood and shook David's hand. Mr. Chen, I believe you were right 5 years ago, and I'm going to help you prove it. After she left, the office fell silent except for the hum of Mr. Kowalski's struggling printer. Do you trust her? Marcus asked. No, David said honestly, but I trust that she wants the truth. Sometimes that's enough. 3 days felt like 3 years. Marcus went to school, played basketball, worked his shifts at the Gazette, and pretended to focus on his college applications. But his mind was always on those photographs, wondering what secrets they might reveal. His mother noticed his distraction. On the third evening, while they were washing dishes together in their small kitchen, she bumped his shoulder gently. You're thinking about the photographs. How can I not? Lynn handed him a plate to dry. Your father has been chasing this for 5 years. You know that most investigations don't end the way you hope they will. But what if this one does? Then we'll deal with it. She paused, her hands still in the soapy water. But Marcus, you need to be prepared. Even if Dr. Tanaka proves the photographs were manipulated, that doesn't tell us who did it or why. It doesn't bring Coach Mills back. It doesn't undo what happened to our family. It proves Dad was right. Your father knows he was right. He doesn't need anyone else to confirm it. Lynn looked at him directly. I'm worried about you. You're 17. You should be thinking about college and prom and normal teenage things. Instead, you're spending every free hour in that office, reading old case files and making phone calls to people who don't want to talk to you. This is important, Mom. I know it is, but so is your life. So is your future. She pulled the plug on the sink and dried her hands. Promise me something. Promise me that when you go to college, wherever you go, you'll let yourself be young. Let yourself make mistakes and have fun and think about something other than this case. Marcus wanted to promise. But he also knew that he couldn't stop now, not when they were so close to answers, not when Mrs. Washington had trusted them with her son's phone records, not when the phone rang. David answered it in the living room. Marcus and Lynn both froze, listening. Yes, this is David Chen. Tomorrow? That's soon? Yes, of course. We'll be there. Thank you, Ms. Torres. David appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face unreadable. Dr. Tanaka finished her analysis. She wants to meet with us tomorrow at Northwestern. She says, he paused. She says we need to see this in person. The next morning was Saturday. Marcus put on his best clothes, khaki pants and a button-down shirt that was slightly too small, but still presentable. His father wore a suit and tie, the same outfit he used to wear to the Chicago Tribune. His mother took the day off from the hospital to come with them. They took the L train to Northwestern's campus in Evanston. The journalism building was modern and impressive, nothing like the cramped office of the Southside Gazette. Jessica Torres met them in the lobby and led them through a maze of hallways to the digital forensics lab. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was a small woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair and wire-rimmed glasses. Her lab was filled with computers, cameras, and equipment Marcus couldn't begin to identify. The photographs were displayed on a large screen on the wall. Mr. Chen, thank you for trusting us with these. Dr. Tanaka shook David's hand formally. What I'm about to show you is significant. Please sit down. They sat in chairs facing the screen. Dr. Tanaka picked up a remote and the first photograph filled the wall. The image of Michael Jordan in what looked like a gambling room, money on a table, other men around him. At first glance, this appears to be a standard photograph from 1993, Dr. Tanaka began. However, when we examine it at the pixel level, she clicked the remote and the image zoomed in dramatically. See these areas here? The grain pattern is inconsistent. In analog photography, grain should be uniform across the entire image. But here, the grain around the figure's head is different from the grain on the body. She clicked again. Now look at the lighting. The shadows fall at different angles. This shadow suggests a light source from the upper left. This shadow suggests a light source from the right. Impossible if this was taken at the same moment in the same room. Marcus leaned forward, his heart pounding. But here's the most damning evidence. Dr. Tanaka zoomed in on the edge where Jordan's head met his neck. This is what we call a composite line, the place where two different images were merged. In 1993, this kind of digital manipulation was extremely rare and required expensive equipment, but it existed. She clicked to the next photograph, then the next. Each time she pointed out inconsistencies, mismatched grain patterns, impossible shadows, slightly different focus depths within what should be a single image. All four photographs are composites, Dr. Tanaka said flatly. Someone took images of Michael Jordan's head, probably from public photographs or basketball footage, and placed them onto bodies of other men. The work is sophisticated, especially for 1993. But it's not perfect. David was gripping the arms of his chair so tightly his knuckles were white. Can you prove this in court? Can you testify to this? I can and will, Dr. Tanaka said. But Mr. Chen, you need to understand something. Proving these photographs are fake doesn't tell you who created them or why. It doesn't prove Jordan's innocence, only that these particular pieces of evidence are fraudulent. It's a start, David said quietly. It's more than we've had in 5 years. Jessica Torres spoke up from where she'd been standing by the door. There's something else. Dr. Tanaka identified the type of equipment that would have been needed to create these composites. There were only about 20 facilities in the United States in 1993 with this capability. Mostly government agencies, movie studios, and high-end advertising firms. Can you get a list? Marcus asked. I already have, Jessica said, holding up a folder. Dr. Tanaka made some calls. 17 of the 20 facilities kept records of their usage logs from that time period. We can start checking. The lab door burst open. Dr. Tanaka's assistant, a young man with wide, frightened eyes, stumbled in. Dr. Tanaka, someone's broken into your office. They took all your files on the Jordan case. And he looked at the Chen family. They left a note. Dr. Tanaka rushed out. They all followed, running down the hallway to her office. The door hung open, the lock broken. Inside, filing cabinets had been pried open, papers scattered everywhere. On her desk, written in red marker on a piece of white paper, was a message. Stop now or the Chen boy disappears like Mills did. Marcus felt his mother's hand grip his shoulder, pulling him back. His father stared at the note, his face pale. Dr. Tanaka pulled out her phone, dialing campus security. Everyone out of my office, don't touch anything. They retreated to the hallway. Lynn was trembling. David pulled her close, but his eyes were on Marcus. We're done, Lynn said firmly. David, this ends now. They threatened our son. They broke into a university building in broad daylight. This isn't worth... They're scared, David interrupted quietly. Think about it. 5 years of us investigating, and nothing happened. But the moment we get proof, real, scientific proof, they panic. They make a move. He looked at Dr. Tanaka. What did they take? My notes, my analysis reports, copies of the photographs. She paused. But they didn't take my computer, and they didn't take the backup drive that's locked in the department safe. Jessica Torres was already on her phone. I'm calling my thesis advisor's contacts at the FBI. A break-in at a federal grant-funded research facility is a federal crime. No, David said sharply. No police. No FBI. Not yet. Dad, they threatened to kill me, Marcus said, surprised at how calm his own voice sounded. We have to be smart. David turned to Dr. Tanaka. Can you recreate your analysis? Write a new report? Of course. I have all the data. But Mr. Chen, how long? 2 days, maybe 3. Then we have 3 days to figure out who did this before they realize you have backups. David looked at each of them, his wife, his son, Jessica, Dr. Tanaka. Someone with resources did this. Someone who's been watching us. Someone who knew the exact day we brought the photographs here. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. You think someone's been following us? I think someone's been following this investigation for 5 years, waiting to see if we'd ever find anything real. And now that we have, they're making their move. Campus security arrived, then Evanston police. They took statements, photographed the broken lock, collected the note. A detective wrote everything down with an expression that said he'd seen too many campus break-ins to be surprised by another one. Probably students looking for research they could steal, he said dismissively. We'll file a report. After the police left, Dr. Tanaka locked her office door, or what was left of it, and walked them back to the lobby. Mr. Chen, I need to know, are you absolutely certain you want to continue this? Because whoever did this has resources and reach. They got into a locked university building in the middle of the day without anyone seeing them. I'm certain, David said. I'm not, Lynn said forcefully. She turned to her husband. David, I've supported you for 5 years. I've worked extra shifts. I've lived in a tiny apartment. I've watched our son grow up too fast because of this investigation. But I will not risk Marcus's life. I won't. Mom, Marcus started. No! Lynn's voice was steel. You're 17 years old. You have college ahead of you, a whole life. I am not going to let some criminal... They already took my life, Marcus interrupted quietly. They took it 5 years ago when everyone started calling Dad crazy. When kids at school made fun of me. When we lost our house and our friends and everything we had. He looked at his mother, then his father. But they didn't take the truth. And if we stop now, they win. Coach Mills died for nothing. Mrs. Washington's courage means nothing. Everything we've sacrificed means nothing. The lobby was silent except for the sound of students passing by outside, laughing and talking about normal college things, exams and parties and what to have for lunch. Lynn's eyes filled with tears. "You sound just like your father." "Good," Marcus said, because he was right. Dr. Tanaka adjusted her glasses. "If we're going to do this, we need to be strategic. The people who did this will expect you to be scared. They'll expect you to stop. So we give them what they expect, publicly." "What do you mean?" David asked. "You go home. You stop coming to campus. You act like the threat worked." Dr. Tanaka's eyes were sharp behind her glasses. "Meanwhile, Jessica and I continue the research quietly. We recreate the analysis. We investigate the list of facilities. And when we have everything we need, all the evidence, all the proof, we go public all at once. Too big to bury, too documented to dismiss." "How long will that take?" Marcus asked. "A month, maybe 6 weeks." Jessica nodded. "I have spring break in 2 weeks. I can use that time to visit the facilities, check records, interview people." "It's too dangerous," Lynn said. "If they threatened Marcus, they threatened him because he's vulnerable," Dr. Tanaka said gently. "He's a teenager. He's your son. They knew it would scare you, but I'm a tenured professor at a major university. Jessica is just a graduate student researching a thesis. We're less obvious targets." David was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small notebook, one of dozens he'd filled over 5 years. He handed it to Dr. Tanaka. "Everything I know is in here. Every contact, every lead, every dead end. Use it." Dr. Tanaka took the notebook carefully. "Mr. Chen, I promise you, we will find who did this. And we will expose them." They took the L train back to the south side in silence. Marcus watched Chicago pass by the windows. The neighborhoods changing from wealthy to working class to poor. The buildings getting shorter and more worn. The people on the streets looking more tired. This was his city. Coach Mills had tried to make it better. Someone had killed him for it. And then they'd blame Michael Jordan, a man who'd given Chicago 3 championships, who'd made millions of people believe in something bigger than themselves. It wasn't right. It wasn't fair. And Marcus was going to help prove it, no matter what it cost. That night, lying in bed, Marcus heard his parents talking in the kitchen. His mother was crying. His father's voice was low and steady, comforting. Marcus got up and stood in the doorway where they couldn't see him. "What if we're wrong?" Lynn was saying. "What if we've wasted 5 years and put our son in danger for nothing?" "Then we're wrong," David said simply. "But Lynn, I've been a journalist for 20 years. I know what truth looks like, and I know what lies look like. Those photographs are lies. Someone went to extraordinary lengths to destroy Michael Jordan and cover up Coach Mills's real murder. That's not nothing. That's everything." "I'm so tired, David." "I know. I'm tired too. Promise me that if anything happens, if they come after Marcus again, we stop. Promise me." "I promise." Marcus went back to his room. He pulled his Michael Jordan jersey from the closet. Number 23, still clean, still waiting. He'd kept it all these years, even when he wasn't sure why. Now he knew. Heroes were worth fighting for, even when it was hard. Even when it was scary. Especially then. Marcus hung the jersey where he could see it from his bed. Tomorrow he would go to school and pretend everything was normal. He would stop going to the Gazette office after class. He would act scared, act like he'd given up. But inside he would be waiting for Dr. Tanaka and Jessica to find the truth. Waiting for the moment when they could finally prove what his father had known all along. The truth was coming, and Marcus Chen was ready. 3 weeks passed like a slow-motion car crash. Marcus went to school, he played basketball, he smiled at his teachers and turned in his homework on time. He even went to Derek Phillips' birthday party, mostly because Derek's mother had invited half the grade, and it would have looked suspicious not to go. But every night, he lay awake listening to his father pace in the next room, waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for news from Dr. Tanaka, or Jessica Torres, waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. It was the silence that scared Marcus most. Not the broken lock, or the threatening note, or the men who'd spirited Mrs. Washington away at the memorial service years ago. The silence meant they were watching, waiting, making sure the Chens had learned their lesson. On a cold Tuesday afternoon in early March, Marcus was shooting free throws in the school gym when his coach approached. "Chen, you got a visitor in the main office. Says it's important." Marcus's stomach dropped. He jogged to the office, his mind racing through possibilities. His mother hurt at the hospital, his father in trouble, something worse. Jessica Torres stood by the receptionist's desk, looking uncomfortable in her Northwestern sweatshirt surrounded by high school students. When she saw Marcus, she smiled tightly. "Hey, Marcus, sorry to pull you out of practice. I was hoping we could talk." The receptionist was clearly listening. Marcus grabbed his backpack from his locker and led Jessica outside to the parking lot, where they couldn't be overheard. "You're not supposed to contact us," Marcus said quietly. "That was the whole plan." The plan changed. Jessica pulled out her phone and showed him a photo of a document. "I found something big. But Dr. Tanaka said I needed to show you and your father in person before we do anything else." Marcus squinted at the phone screen. It looked like a logbook, typed entries with dates and times. "What am I looking at?" "Equipment sign-out records from 1993, from Pacific Digital Imaging in Los Angeles, one of the 17 facilities with the technology to create those composite photographs." Jessica's hands were shaking slightly. Someone checked out their photo manipulation suite for 3 days in May 1993, right before those photographs of Jordan appeared. "Who?" Jessica glanced around the parking lot. "Not here. Can you get your dad and meet me somewhere? Somewhere public but not obvious?" 20 minutes later, Marcus and his father sat across from Jessica at a busy McDonald's on Stony Island Avenue. The dinner rush was starting. Families with small children, teenagers grabbing burgers after school, elderly couples drinking coffee. Perfect cover for a conversation no one should overhear. Jessica spread 3 printed pages on the table between the ketchup packets and napkin dispensers. "Pacific Digital Imaging in Los Angeles," she began, keeping her voice low. "In 1993, they were working on special effects for a major movie studio. They had equipment that could do things most people didn't even know were possible. Digital photo manipulation, composite imaging, realistic face swapping." David studied the pages with the same intensity he used to bring to crime scene photos. "This is the sign-out log?" "Yes. See this entry? May 15th through May 18th, 1993. 3 days. Someone reserved the full suite, equipment, private workspace, technician support." Jessica pointed to a line at the bottom. "And here's the signature." Marcus leaned closer. The signature was barely legible, a scrawled mess of loops and lines. But the printed name above it was crystal clear. Thomas Brennan, Chicago Police Department. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. "Tommy Brennan? The cop who talked to us?" "The same one," David said quietly. His face had gone pale. "The one who disappeared after the diner." "He didn't disappear," Jessica said. "I tracked him down. He's alive, living in Phoenix under a different name. Thomas Bradley. He's a security consultant now. Very quiet life, very careful." She pulled out another page. "I found him through his daughter's Facebook page. She posted throwback photos of family vacations. One photo was tagged at his current address." David looked up sharply. "You contacted him?" "Not yet. Dr. Tanaka said I had to talk to you first. Because here's the thing." Jessica hesitated. If Tommy Brennan signed out that equipment, he either created those photographs himself or he was part of the team that did. Either way, he's directly involved in framing Michael Jordan. "But he helped us," Marcus said, confused. "He told us about the protection unit, about how they needed someone big to take the fall. Before his car mysteriously crashed through the diner window and he vanished," David finished. "What if that wasn't an attack? What if it was an extraction?" The noise of the McDonald's, children laughing, the fryer beeping, someone's phone playing music, suddenly felt very far away. Marcus tried to piece it together. "You think Tommy Brennan was never helping us?" You think he was sent to find out what we knew? Or to scare us off, David said. Tell us just enough truth to make it seem dangerous. Then stage his own disappearance to make us think we were in over our heads. Jessica nodded. Dr. Tanaka thinks the same thing. She says it's a classic misdirection. Give investigators a lead that seems important, but actually leads nowhere. Meanwhile, you find out exactly what they know and how close they are to real evidence. Marcus felt sick. He remembered Tommy Brennan's nervous glances at the diner, his warnings about dangerous people, the blood on his police ring. Had it all been an act? What do we do? Marcus asked. David was quiet for a long moment, staring at the sign-out log. We need to talk to him, in person. If he created those photographs, he can testify about who ordered him to do it. He's the link between the fake evidence and whoever framed Jordan. He's not going to talk, Jessica said. Why would he? He's been hiding for 5 years. Because people who hide are afraid, David said, and people who are afraid can be convinced that talking is safer than staying quiet. He looked at Jessica. When's your spring break? Next week. Can you get to Phoenix? My parents live in Tucson. I was planning to visit them anyway. Jessica understood immediately. I could make a detour. No, Marcus said suddenly. Both adults looked at him. If he's dangerous, if he was part of framing Jordan and killing Coach Mills, you can't go alone. Marcus is right, David said. This needs to be done carefully, professionally. He pulled out his old Tribune business card. He still carried them, even though they were 5 years out of date. He wrote a phone number on the back. Call this number. Tell them David Chen sent you. It's a private investigator I used to work with, Eddie Ochoa. He's good, he's discreet, and he owes me a favor. Jessica took the card. What do I tell him? Tell him we need Tommy Brennan on record. Audio, video, whatever Eddie can get. Tell him, David paused. Tell him it's time to finish what we started. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Tommy Brennan's face at the diner, the fear in his eyes, the way he looked over his shoulder, the blood on his ring. Had it all been fake, or had some of it been real? At 2 in the morning, Marcus gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen for water. His mother was already there, sitting at the table in her nurse's scrubs, a cup of tea cooling in front of her. Can't sleep either? She asked. Marcus shook his head and sat down across from her. Mom, do you think we're doing the right thing? Lynn was quiet for a moment. I think your father is doing what he has to do. I think you're both too stubborn to quit even when you should. She reached across the table and took his hand. But yes, I think you're doing the right thing, even though it scares me. Why? Because Coach Mills died trying to expose the truth. Your father lost his career defending it. If we stop now, if we let them win, then what was it all for? She squeezed his hand. Sometimes the right thing is the hardest thing. Your father taught me that. I thought you wanted us to stop. I do. I want you to be safe and normal, and not tangled up in murders and conspiracies. Lynn smiled sadly. But I also raised you to stand up for what's right. I can't have it both ways. Marcus heard his father's footsteps in the hallway. David appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted, holding one of his endless notebooks. Couldn't sleep? Lynn asked. Not until we figure out the next move. David sat down at the table. If Tommy Brennan created those photographs, someone paid him to do it. Someone with resources, someone who knew about Jordan's gambling, knew about Coach Mills's work, and knew how to manipulate both situations. Vincent Caruso, Marcus said, the businessman Jordan mentioned. David shook his head. Jordan never mentioned that name to us. Remember? We only heard about Caruso from Tommy, who we now know might be lying about everything. Marcus felt like the ground was shifting under him. So we don't even know if Caruso is real? Oh, he's real, David said. I've been tracking him for 5 years. Vincent Caruso runs gambling operations, owns several legitimate businesses, has connections to politicians and police. He exists. The question is whether he's actually the person behind all this, or whether Tommy fed us that name to point us away from someone else. Then who? Lynn asked. I don't know yet. David opened his notebook to a page covered in names and connecting lines, a conspiracy chart that had been growing for years. But once we get Tommy on record, Once we have him explaining who paid him and why, the rest will fall into place. 1 week later, Jessica Torres called from Phoenix. Marcus and his father were at the Gazette office when the phone rang. David put it on speaker so Marcus could hear. "I found him," Jessica said, her voice tight with excitement. "Eddie and I have been watching his house for 3 days. Tommy, or Thomas Bradley now, leaves for work every morning at 7:30, comes home at 6, doesn't go anywhere else. Very routine, very careful." "Did Eddie get close to him?" David asked. "Better. Eddie has a connection at the security company where Tommy works. We know his schedule, his route, where he gets coffee." Jessica paused. "Eddie thinks we can approach him at the coffee shop. Public place, lots of witnesses. Tommy can't run without causing a scene." "When?" "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Phoenix time." Another pause. "Mr. Chen, Eddie wants to know, do you want to be here when we talk to him?" David looked at Marcus. The question hung in the air between them. If David flew to Phoenix, it would cost money they didn't have. He'd have to take time off work they desperately needed. It would be risky and possibly dangerous. But this was it. This was the moment 5 years of investigation had been building toward. "Book me a ticket," David said. "I'll be there tonight." "Dad," Marcus started. I know it's expensive. I know it's risky." David stood up, already reaching for his coat. "But if Tommy Brennan is going to talk to anyone, it's going to be me. I'm the one he met 5 years ago. I'm the one he tried to scare away. If he's going to tell the truth, I need to be there to hear it." Marcus grabbed his backpack. "Then I'm coming too." "Marcus, you have school." "I have 3 college visits scheduled for spring break." Marcus lied smoothly. "I'll tell Mom I'm visiting Northwestern early. She won't question it." David studied his son's face. Marcus held his gaze steadily. After 17 years, they understood each other without words. "Pack light," David finally said. "We leave in 4 hours." They flew out of O'Hare that night, a red-eye flight that cost most of David's savings. Marcus had never been on a plane before. He pressed his face to the window as Chicago disappeared beneath them, the lights of the city spreading out like a constellation. Somewhere down there, Michael Jordan was living his life. Somewhere down there, Mrs. Washington was tending her son's grave. Somewhere down there, the truth was buried under 5 years of lies, but not for much longer. Jessica and Eddie Ochoa met them at the Phoenix airport at dawn. Eddie was in his 50s, stocky and solid, with a graying mustache and sharp eyes that constantly scanned their surroundings. He shook David's hand firmly and nodded at Marcus. "David Chen, been a long time. Thanks for doing this." "Eddie, you kidding? I've been following this story since '93. About time someone proved what really happened." Eddie led them to his car. "Tommy Brennan's coffee shop is 15 minutes from here. We need to get in position before he arrives." The coffee shop was called Desert Sunrise, a local chain with comfortable chairs and walls painted in warm oranges and reds. Eddie positioned himself by the door with a newspaper. Jessica sat at a corner table with her laptop, pretending to work. David and Marcus took a booth near the back with clear sight lines to the entrance. At exactly 8:15, Tommy Brennan walked in. He'd aged in 5 years, heavier now, graying at the temples, wearing khakis and a polo shirt with a security company logo. But Marcus recognized him immediately. The same nervous energy, the same way of looking around like he expected danger from any direction. Tommy ordered a large coffee, black, no sugar, and turned toward the seating area. His eyes met David's. For a moment, everything stopped. Tommy's face went pale. His hand tightened on his coffee cup. Marcus saw him calculating the distance to the door, whether he could run, whether these people would cause a scene. David raised one hand slowly, palm out. Not threatening, just waiting. Tommy Brennan stood frozen for 5 long seconds. Then slowly he walked over to their booth and sat down. "I knew you'd find me eventually," Tommy said quietly. His voice was hoarse, resigned. "I just thought I'd have more time." Tommy Brennan wrapped both hands around his coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping him anchored to the chair. His eyes darted from David to Marcus to Eddie by the door, then back to David. "You can't record this," Tommy said. "No phones, no wires, nothing." David pulled his phone from his pocket and placed it face down on the table. Marcus did the same. Eddie stayed by the door but made a show of setting his phone on the counter beside his newspaper. "We just want the truth," David said quietly. "That's all we've ever wanted." Tommy laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "The truth? You know what the truth costs? Everything. Your job, your family, your name, your life." He took a long drink of coffee. "5 years ago, I thought I could help you without destroying myself. I was wrong." "The diner," Marcus said. "The car crash, that was staged." "Very good." Tommy looked at Marcus with something like respect. "Smart kid." "Yeah, it was staged. Had to make you think I was dead or disappeared. Had to make whoever was watching think I'd been silenced." He turned back to David. "But I left you clues. The ring, the blood, fake blood. But you didn't know that. I left you enough to keep digging without getting yourselves killed." "Who were you protecting us from?" David asked. Tommy was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, Phoenix was waking up. Cars filling the parking lot, people in business clothes rushing in for their morning coffee. Normal life. The life Tommy had built here, far from Chicago and its ghosts. "You found the Pacific digital imaging records," Tommy finally said. "That's how you found me." "We know you checked out photo manipulation equipment in May 1993, Jessica said from her corner table, not bothering to pretend she wasn't listening. "We know you had access to the technology needed to create the composite photographs. What we don't know is who paid you to do it." Tommy closed his eyes. "I didn't create them. I was the courier. I picked them up, brought them back to Chicago, made sure they got distributed to all the right media outlets on the same day." He opened his eyes and looked directly at David. "I was dirty. I won't lie about that. I was part of a unit that took money from people we should have been arresting. But I didn't kill Coach Mills. And I didn't want to destroy Michael Jordan." "But you did it anyway," David said. "I did it because the alternative was worse." Tommy's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "They had photos of my daughter. She was 9 years old. They said if I didn't deliver the Jordan photos and keep my mouth shut, she'd disappear. So yeah, I did it. And I've lived with that choice every single day since." Marcus felt a chill run through him. "Who are they?" Tommy looked around the coffee shop one more time, like he expected men in dark suits to burst through the door. "You ever hear of Bernard Kowalski?" David's face went completely white. "Bernie Kowalski? From the Gazette?" "His brother, Dominic Kowalski." Tommy leaned forward. "Bernie's the nice one, the reporter who writes about church bake sales and high school sports. Dom is something else. He runs a private security company, started it after leaving the Marines in the 80s. By 1993, he had contracts with half the politicians in Illinois and connections that went all the way to Washington." Marcus's mind was racing. Mr. Kowalski, the elderly reporter who worked at his father's newspaper, who'd been there for 5 years, watching them investigate, listening to every conversation, seeing every piece of evidence they found. "Dad," Marcus said urgently, "your notebooks, all your research, it's all at the office. Where Bernie Kowalski has access to everything." David's voice was hollow. "My God, he's been reporting back to his brother this whole time." Tommy nodded grimly. "Bernie's not a bad guy. He probably doesn't even know half of what Dom does. But family is family. Dom asks for information. Bernie provides it, has for years." "Why?" David demanded. "Why would Dominic Kowalski want to destroy Michael Jordan? What did Jordan ever do to him?" "Nothing. Jordan was just convenient." Tommy finished his coffee and set the cup down with shaking hands. In 1992, Coach Raymond Mills started noticing things. Kids in his program were being recruited, not for college basketball, but for something else. Some private security company was targeting athletic kids from poor neighborhoods. Good benefits, good pay, legitimate-looking contracts, but the training was wrong. Too much combat, too much about following orders without questions. "Dominic Kowalski's company," Jessica said. "Mercenaries," Tommy confirmed. "Legal ones. Private military contractors. Dom had government contracts in South America, Africa, Middle East. But American soldiers asked too many questions. Kids from the South Side desperate for a way out? They sign whatever you put in front of them. Marcus felt sick. Coach Mills figured it out. Coach Mills had a kid in his program, 17 years old, signed up with Dom's company, deployed to God knows where. Kid came back in a box 6 months later. Parents were told it was an accident. Coach Mills started digging, found out the kid had been part of an operation that wasn't exactly legal. Found out Dom's company was doing jobs that the government couldn't officially authorize. Tommy pulled a thumb drive from his pocket and slid it across the table to David. "This is why I'm really here. Why I've been waiting for you to find me." He tapped the drive. Coach Mills recorded everything. Names, dates, operations, recruitment numbers. He was building a case. He contacted the FBI, and he contacted Michael Jordan. "Jordan?" Marcus said. "Why Jordan?" "Because Jordan had influence. Jordan had money. Jordan had the one thing Coach Mills needed, a platform that people would actually listen to." Tommy's voice was filled with regret. Coach Mills met with Jordan 3 times, showed him the evidence, asked him to help expose what was happening. Jordan said yes, said he'd use his fame to make sure people paid attention. David was gripping the thumb drive like it might evaporate, and Dominic Kowalski found out. Dom had people everywhere, cops, politicians, reporters. He found out about Coach Mills's investigation, about the FBI involvement, about Jordan's promise to help. Tommy's hands were shaking now. So he made a choice: kill Coach Mills, make it look like an accident, and destroy Jordan's credibility so completely that even if he tried to speak out, no one would believe him. "The photographs," David said. "Dom paid someone in Los Angeles, someone with the skills and equipment, to create them. I don't know who. I just know he had them made, and I was ordered to pick them up and distribute them." Tommy looked at Marcus. "Your father was the only journalist who questioned them, the only one who looked close enough to see they were fake. That made him dangerous." "So you met with us at the diner to find out how much we knew?" David said. "And to warn you. The car crash, the disappearance. That was real panic on my part. I realized Dom had people watching that meeting. I had to get out before they decided I was talking too much." Tommy stood up slowly. "I've been Thomas Bradley for 5 years. New name, new city, new life. My daughter is safe. My ex-wife thinks I'm dead. It's not much, but it's something." "We need you to testify," David said. "We need you on record." "No." Tommy's voice was flat. "I gave you the drive. That's all I can do. Coach Mills recorded everything. It's all there. His meetings with Jordan, his evidence against Dom's company, everything. You don't need me." "A recording from a dead man won't hold up in court," Jessica argued. "We need a living witness." "Then you need Michael Jordan." Tommy looked at each of them. Jordan knew everything. He agreed to help Coach Mills. The FBI asked him to back off, to let them build their case quietly. Jordan agreed because they promised they'd protect him. They lied. The FBI's investigation fell apart. Surprise, surprise, when the lead agent turned out to be on Dom Kowalski's payroll. Eddie spoke up from his position by the door. "How do we know Jordan will talk? He's kept quiet for 5 years." "Because Jordan has honor," Tommy said simply. "He made a promise to Coach Mills. When Mills died and Jordan's name was dragged through the mud, the FBI told him to stay silent, told him speaking out would get more people killed. Jordan's been waiting for someone to bring him proof that it's safe to tell the truth." He gestured to the thumb drive. "That's your proof. That's your leverage. Take it to Jordan. Tell him Thomas Brennan says it's time." "Jordan will remember you?" David asked. "Jordan met with me once. I was the FBI's liaison to the Chicago PD. Before I went dirty, I was trying to do the right thing." Tommy's face was filled with shame. "I helped set up the meetings between Coach Mills and Jordan. I promised to protect them both. Then Dom got to me, and I became part of the problem instead of the solution." He pulled out his wallet and took out a business card, old, worn, bent at the corners. He handed it to David. "This is Jordan's private number from 1993. Probably changed, but if you can get a message to him, through his agent, his manager, whoever, show him this card. Tell him Thomas Brennan sent you. He'll know it's real." Tommy turned to leave, then stopped. He looked at Marcus for a long moment. "How old are you, kid?" 17. "Same age as the boy who died, the one who joined Dom's company." Tommy's eyes were wet. "His name was Marcus too. Marcus Williams. Coach Mills named you in the recordings, said he was doing this for all the Marcus Williamses of the world. Kids who deserve better than to be used up and thrown away. Before Marcus could respond, Tommy Brennan walked out of the coffee shop and disappeared into the Phoenix morning. The four of them sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, David picked up the thumb drive and held it up to the light. Eddie, can you verify what's on here? Make sure it's not corrupted or booby-trapped? Already thinking ahead, Eddie pulled out a laptop from his bag. Let's see what Coach Mills left us. They moved to a back corner booth. Eddie connected the thumb drive to his laptop, running security scans. After 5 minutes, he nodded. It's clean. Audio files, video files, document scans. Looks like he scrolled through the directory. 42 audio recordings, 16 video files, maybe 300 pages of scanned documents. David looked at Jessica. Can we review these at Dr. Tanaka's lab? Somewhere secure? We can review them on the plane, Jessica said. I brought my laptop with encrypted backup. But Mr. Chen, she hesitated. If everything Tommy said is true, we can't go back to the Gazette. We can't let Bernie Kowalski know what we found. Bernie's not the enemy, David said. He's just a man who loves his brother. But you're right. We can't risk him telling Dom that we have this evidence. Marcus was staring at the business card Tommy had given them. Michael Jordan's private number from 1993. A direct line to the man at the center of everything. We have to go to him, Marcus said. We have to talk to Jordan before we do anything else. He's probably not in Chicago, Eddie pointed out. He travels constantly. Games, endorsements, public appearances. Then we find out where he is and we go there. Marcus looked at his father. Dad, we've spent 5 years investigating. We've been threatened, broken into, followed, and lied to. We have proof now, real proof. But none of it matters if Jordan won't back it up. We need him to tell his side of the story. David was quiet, thinking. Finally, he nodded. Eddie, can you find out where Jordan is right now? Give me an hour. Eddie was already on his phone, calling him favors, working his network. They went to a hotel near the airport. Nothing fancy, just a place with Wi-Fi and privacy. Eddie made his calls. Jessica and David started reviewing the files from Coach Mills' thumb drive, headphones on, taking notes. Marcus sat on one of the beds staring at his phone. He wanted to call his mother, tell her what they'd found, but he couldn't risk it. Not yet, not until they knew if the phones were compromised. After an hour, Eddie came back into the room. Found him. Jordan's in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's got a day off between games. Flies out tomorrow afternoon. Can you get us to Charlotte? David asked. Already booked. Flight leaves in 3 hours. Eddie grinned. And I called an old friend who works security at Jordan's hotel. Got us a meeting. 8 p.m. tonight. Jessica looked up from the laptop, her face pale. You guys need to hear this. The first recording, it's Coach Mills talking to Jordan. The audio quality isn't great, but you can hear everything. She unplugged her headphones and turned up the volume. A voice came through the speakers, warm, caring, determined. Coach Raymond Mills. Mr. Jordan, I appreciate you taking this meeting. I know your time is valuable, but what I'm about to show you, what I'm about to ask you to help me expose, it's bigger than basketball. It's bigger than both of us. Kids are dying. Good kids who just wanted a chance. And the man responsible is protected by money and power and connections that go straight to the top. Another voice, deeper, unmistakable. Coach Mills, I grew up on the South Side. I know those kids. I was those kids. If someone's hurting them, using them, I want to help. Tell me what you need. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. He didn't bother wiping them away. That was his hero's voice, Michael Jordan. Not the athlete or the icon or the celebrity. Just a man who'd made a promise to help. A promise he'd been forced to keep silent about for 5 years. We're going to Charlotte, Marcus said. David nodded. We're going to Charlotte. They landed in Charlotte at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline. Eddie's security friend met them at the hotel, a discreet upscale place near the arena. He led them through a service entrance, up a back elevator to a suite on the top floor. He knows you're coming, the security guard said. He's cautious, had his people verify your identities. But he agreed to meet. 15 minutes. The guard knocked on the suite door and walked away. The door opened. Michael Jordan stood there in jeans and a Bulls t-shirt, looking tired but alert. His eyes scanned each of them quickly, the way someone who's been hunted learns to assess threats. "David Chen," he said, "I remember reading your articles. You were the only one who didn't assume I was guilty." "I'm not a journalist anymore," David said, "but I'm still looking for the truth." Jordan's eyes moved to Marcus. "And you're his son?" "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir. Makes me feel old." Jordan stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come in. We don't have much time, and we have a lot to talk about." The suite was elegant but understated. Jordan clearly valued privacy over luxury. He gestured for them to sit at a dining table near the window, overlooking Charlotte's downtown lights. "You have something for me," Jordan said. It wasn't a question. David placed the thumb drive on the table. Coach Raymond Mills recorded everything. His investigation into Dominic Kowalski's company, his meetings with you, his evidence about the recruitment operation. Jordan stared at the drive for a long moment. "I haven't heard Coach Mills's voice in 5 years." "You can hear it now," Jessica said gently. "We've reviewed about half the recordings. He talks about you with respect, with hope. He believed you'd help him." "I wanted to." Jordan's voice was rough with emotion. "I promised him I would. Then the FBI got involved. Then everything went to hell." "Tell us," David said. "Tell us everything that really happened." And Michael Jordan, the man who'd been blamed for something he didn't do, who'd carried that burden in silence for 5 years, finally told his truth. Michael Jordan stood and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. The Charlotte skyline glittered in the darkness. A city that had no idea one of the greatest athletes in history was about to unburden himself of secrets that had nearly destroyed him. "May 1993, Jordan began, his voice quiet but steady. "I just won my 3rd championship. Everything in my life should have been perfect. Then I got a call from a man I'd never met. Coach Raymond Mills from the Southside Youth Center." Marcus leaned forward, not wanting to miss a single word. "Coach Mills told me about a kid named Marcus Williams, 17 years old. Great athlete, better person. The kid signed a contract with a private security company. Seemed like a dream opportunity. Good pay, training, a way out of poverty. 6 months later, the kid was dead in some country most people can't find on a map." Jordan turned to face them. Coach Mills started investigating. He found 6 other kids from Chicago youth programs, all recruited by the same company, all sent on dangerous operations, 2 more dead, 3 injured so badly they'd never be the same. 1 just disappeared. The families were paid off or threatened into silence. "Dominic Kowalski's company," David said. Jordan's jaw tightened. Kowalski was running a pipeline. Target kids with athletic talent, discipline, and nowhere else to go. Train them just enough to be useful. Send them on jobs that regular military wouldn't touch. If they died, who would ask questions? Just another kid from the South Side who didn't make it. "But Coach Mills asked questions," Jessica said. "Coach Mills asked questions, gathered evidence, and contacted the FBI." Jordan sat back down at the table. "Special Agent Richard Moss, he seemed legitimate, said they'd been watching Kowalski for years but could never get solid proof. Coach Mills' documentation was exactly what they needed." "What kind of documentation?" David asked. "Recruitment contracts with hidden clauses, training schedules that match military operations overseas, financial records showing payments from shell companies, and testimony. Coach Mills got 3 of the surviving kids to agree to talk." Jordan's fist clenched on the table. "That's when Agent Moss brought me in." "Why you?" Marcus asked. "Because Kowalski had connections everywhere. Police, judges, politicians. The FBI needed someone with a platform big enough that the story couldn't be buried. Someone people would listen to." Jordan looked directly at Marcus. "Agent Moss said if I went public with Coach Mills, if I stood beside him and gave the story weight, Kowalski wouldn't be able to kill it. The pressure would force a real investigation." "You agreed," David said. "Of course I agreed. These were kids from my neighborhood. Kids like me. I met with Coach Mills 3 times, reviewed his evidence. Met one of the survivors, a 19-year-old kid named Antoine Davis who'd lost his left arm in an operation in Somalia." Jordan's voice cracked slightly. Antoine told me he thought he was doing security work, protecting diplomats. Instead, they put him in the middle of a firefight between warlords. When he got hit, his team left him. Just left him there to die. He survived because some villagers found him. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. We were going to hold a press conference, Jordan continued. June 1st, 1993, Coach Mills would present his evidence. Antoine and the other survivors would testify. I would stand there and use my name to make sure the world paid attention. He paused. Then Coach Mills died. The fire, Marcus whispered. May 27th. 4 days before the press conference. Jordan's hands were shaking now. I got the call at 3 in the morning. Coach Mills was dead. The youth center was destroyed. All his physical evidence, every document, every contract, every piece of paper, burned. But he'd made backups, David said, gesturing to the thumb drive. I didn't know that then. All I knew was that a good man was dead, and the only evidence linking Kowalski to those deaths was gone. Jordan stood and paced again. Agent Moss called me 6 hours later. Said the investigation was compromised. Said there were leaks in the FBI. Said if I went public without the evidence, Kowalski would destroy me. The photographs, Jessica said. Jordan nodded grimly. Moss warned me they'd come after my reputation. Said Kowalski had the resources to manufacture evidence, plant stories, turn public opinion against me. He advised me to stay quiet, let them work the investigation quietly, and they'd protect me. You trusted him, David said. I trusted the FBI. Jordan's voice was bitter. 3 days later, those photographs appeared everywhere. Me in a gambling den, me with criminals, me connected to Coach Mills's death. The story was perfect. Troubled athlete with gambling debts leads dangerous people to an innocent man. Marcus felt anger burning in his chest. But you knew they were fake. Of course I knew. I was never in those places, never with those people. I hired my own investigators immediately. They confirmed what your father figured out. The photos were composites, professionally made, impossible to create without expensive equipment. Jordan sat back down heavily. I went back to Agent Moss. Told him I wanted to fight it, to expose the fake photos and tell the truth about Coach Mills and Kowalski. What did he say? David asked. He said if I went public, more people would die. The surviving witnesses would be killed. Antoine Davis would be killed. Anyone connected to the investigation would become a target. Jordan's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. He said Kowalski had already killed Coach Mills. He'd do it again, unless I stayed quiet and let the FBI work. So you retired, Marcus said, understanding flooding through him. I retired. Walked away from basketball at the peak of my career because Agent Moss convinced me it was the only way to keep people safe. He said the investigation would take a year, maybe 2. Then they'd arrest Kowalski, clear my name, and I could come back. Jordan laughed bitterly. That was 5 years ago. What happened to Agent Moss? Eddie asked. Promoted, transferred to Washington. The investigation into Kowalski quietly disappeared. No arrests, no charges, nothing. Jordan looked at David with respect. You were the only one who kept digging, the only one who wouldn't let the story die. I wanted to contact you to tell you the truth, but I was afraid that if I broke my silence, Kowalski would make good on his threats. David pulled out the business card Tommy Brennan had given them. Thomas Brennan says it's time to tell the truth. Jordan took the card, his eyes widening. Tommy Brennan. I remember him. Good cop who got caught up in bad things. He helped set up my meetings with Coach Mills. He looked up. Where is he? Phoenix, living under a new name. He gave us Coach Mills's recordings. David tapped the thumb drive. Everything Coach Mills discovered is on here. His investigation, his evidence, his meetings with you. It's all documented. And the survivors? Jordan asked urgently. Antoine Davis and the others? Eddie spoke up. I can track them down. If they're still alive, if they're still willing to talk, they'll talk if I ask them to, Jordan said firmly. I promised them 5 years ago that their sacrifice would mean something. I broke that promise by staying quiet. Time to make it right. Jessica had been typing on her laptop. Mr. Jordan, Dr. Tanaka can analyze Coach Mills' recordings, verify their authenticity, create a comprehensive forensic report. Combined with her analysis of the fake photographs, we'd have proof that you were framed and proof of why. But we need more than proof, David said. We need to expose Dominic Kowalski. He ordered Coach Mills's death. He created the fake evidence. He's responsible for recruiting and killing those kids. And he has a brother who's been watching your investigation for 5 years, Jordan added. Bernie Kowalski at the Gazette. Marcus's stomach turned. Mr. Kowalski always seemed so nice. He'd bring donuts on Fridays. He'd ask about my schoolwork. He probably is nice, Jordan said. Family loyalty makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. Doesn't make it right, but it makes it understandable. David stood up, pacing now. Here's what we know. Dominic Kowalski runs an illegal recruitment operation. He killed Coach Mills to protect it. He framed Jordan to discredit anyone Mills had contacted. He has connections in law enforcement and government. His brother has been monitoring our investigation. He stopped pacing. What we don't know is how to expose him without getting killed in the process. We go big, Jessica said. So big he can't bury it. Multiple media outlets simultaneously. Network news, newspapers, online platforms. Release everything at once. The fake photos, the forensic analysis, Coach Mills's recordings, testimony from the survivors, Jordan's statement. It'll be a media firestorm, Eddie warned. Good, Jordan said. Let it burn. Kowalski has been hiding in the shadows for too long. David looked at Jordan carefully. If you do this, if you go public, your life changes again. The gambling accusations will come back. People will question why you stayed silent for 5 years. Your legacy... My legacy? Jordan interrupted. My legacy is already stained. People think I'm connected to a man's death. They think my gambling led criminals to an innocent person. They think I retired because I couldn't handle the scandal. He stood up and Marcus saw the determination that had made him the greatest basketball player in the world. Time to set the record straight. Time to honor the promise I made to Coach Mills. Marcus felt something shift in the room, like a decision had been made that couldn't be undone. We'll need a few weeks, David said, to gather all the evidence, contact the survivors, coordinate the media release. No, Jordan said firmly. Kowalski has been one step ahead because you've been moving slowly, carefully. He's been watching through his brother, countering every move. He looked at each of them. We do this fast. 1 week. We gather everything, verify everything, and release it all at once before he knows what's happening. That's risky, Eddie said. Everything about this is risky, Jordan replied. But I'm done being careful. I'm done letting a murderer walk free while my name gets dragged through the mud. David pulled out his phone. I'll call Dr. Tanaka. Tell her we need the complete forensic analysis in 7 days. Jessica was already typing. I'll reach out to my contacts at 60 Minutes in the New York Times. National coverage, impossible to ignore. Eddie nodded. I'll find Antoine Davis and the other survivors. Get them on record. Jordan looked at Marcus. And you. What's your role in this? Marcus thought about the last 5 years. The mockery at school, his father's obsession, his mother's tears, the tiny apartment, the endless investigation that consumed their lives. I'm the witness, Marcus said quietly. I'm the one who can testify about what this cost, about how the lie affected real people, about how my father never stopped believing in the truth even when everyone else gave up. Jordan reached out and shook Marcus's hand. Your father raised a good man. He learned from good men, Marcus replied, looking at both Jordan and his father. They spent the next 2 hours planning. David would coordinate with Dr. Tanaka in Chicago. Jessica would handle media outreach. Eddie would track down witnesses. Jordan would prepare his statement and use his resources to hire security, real security, not connected to Kowalski. At 10 p.m., Jordan's assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Jordan, you have an early flight tomorrow. Cancel it, Jordan said without hesitation. Clear my schedule for the next week. Tell the team I have a personal emergency. After the assistant left, Jordan walked them to the door. But before they left, he pulled David aside. Chen, I need you to know something. What you did, keeping your integrity, losing your career, investigating for 5 years, that took more courage than anything I ever did on a basketball court. David's eyes were wet. I just wanted the truth. And now we have it. Jordan gripped his shoulder. 1 week. We expose everything. We finish what Coach Mills started. They flew back to Chicago on the red-eye, arriving at dawn. Marcus was exhausted but couldn't sleep. Everything was moving so fast now. 5 years of slow investigation suddenly exploding into 7 days of action. When they got home, Lin Chen was waiting at the kitchen table. She took one look at their faces and knew. It's happening, she said. Whatever you've been building toward all these years. David sat down across from her and took her hands. We have proof. We have Michael Jordan's testimony. We have Coach Mills's recordings. In 1 week, we're going to expose the man who killed Coach Mills and framed Jordan. And then, Lin asked quietly, and then we finally move on with our lives. Lin was quiet for a long moment. Then she squeezed his hands. Okay, tell me what you need me to do. For the first time in 5 years, they were a family united in purpose, not broken by the investigation, but strengthened by it. Marcus went to his room and pulled out his Michael Jordan jersey. Number 23, he hung it on his door where he could see it. In 1 week, everyone would know the truth. In 1 week, his hero's name would be cleared. In 1 week, justice would finally be served. But first, they had to survive those 7 days. And somewhere in Chicago, Dominic Kowalski was about to realize that the investigation he thought he'd buried was about to explode in his face. The countdown had begun. Day 1. Marcus sat in his bedroom at 6 a.m., unable to sleep, staring at his phone. In 7 days, everything would change. In 7 days, the truth would finally come out. In 7 days, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We know what you're planning. Stop now or face consequences. Marcus's hands went cold. He screenshot the message and ran to his father's room. David was already awake, sitting at the small desk with his laptop open, headphones on, reviewing Coach Mills' recordings. Dad. Marcus showed him the phone. David's face hardened. He pulled out his own phone and called Eddie. They know. We have a leak. Marcus could hear Eddie's voice through the speaker, muffled but urgent. David's responses were clipped, controlled. No, we haven't told anyone except the people in Charlotte. Yes, I'm sure. Bernie. It has to be Bernie Kowalski. He must have seen something at the office, figured out we were moving. David hung up and looked at Marcus. Pack a bag, essentials only. We're leaving. Leaving where? Somewhere they can't watch us. Eddie's arranging a safe house. Lynn appeared in the doorway in her nurse's scrubs, about to leave for her shift. What's happening? They know, David said simply. We have to go dark for the next 6 days. 20 minutes later, they were in Eddie's car, a different car than he'd driven in Phoenix, Marcus noticed. Eddie picked them up 3 blocks from their apartment at a prearranged spot. No phones, Eddie said, holding out a box. Everything goes in here. They can track phones even when they're off. Marcus hesitated before dropping his phone in the box. It felt like cutting off his last connection to the normal world. His father and mother did the same. Eddie sealed the box and tucked it under the driver's seat. Where are we going? Lynn asked. My cousin's cabin, 2 hours north near the Wisconsin border. No neighbors, no internet, no connection to any of us. Eddie pulled into traffic. Jordan's people are arranging security. Dr. Tanaka and Jessica are going to a hotel under assumed names. We're splitting up so they can't target everyone at once. They drove in silence. Marcus watched Chicago disappear behind them. The familiar streets, the skyline, everything he knew. In the rearview mirror, he thought he saw a black sedan following them. But after Eddie took several random turns and doubled back twice, the sedan was gone. Maybe it had never been there at all. Maybe Marcus was just paranoid now. The cabin was small and isolated, surrounded by pine trees and spring mud. No other houses were visible in any direction. Eddie made 3 passes around the property before pulling into the gravel driveway. Stay inside, don't go near windows. I'll bring supplies this afternoon. Eddie handed David a burner phone. This number connects directly to me. Don't call anyone else. After Eddie left, the cabin felt suffocatingly quiet. No traffic sounds, no sirens, no city noise. Just wind in the trees and the occasional bird call. Lynn immediately started organizing. checking the kitchen supplies, making a list of what they'd need, turning a crisis into something she could manage with practical action. It was how she dealt with stress, Marcus knew. Control what you can control. David set up his laptop at the small dining table and plugged in an external hard drive. I made copies of everything before we left. Coach Mills's recordings, Dr. Tanaka's analysis, all my notes. Even if they destroy the originals, we have backups. Marcus stood at the window, watching the trees sway. Do you think they'd really hurt us? Or is it just threats? They killed Coach Mills, David said quietly. They framed Michael Jordan. They threatened Tommy Brennan's daughter. Yes, I think they'd really hurt us. Then why are we doing this? David looked up from his laptop. Because someone has to. Because those kids who died deserve justice. Because the truth matters even when it's dangerous. Marcus understood, but understanding didn't make him less scared. Day 2. Eddie arrived with groceries, bottled water, and news. Dr. Tanaka's almost finished the forensic report. Should be ready by tomorrow. Jessica's made contact with 60 Minutes and the New York Times. They're interested but want to verify everything before committing. And the survivors? David asked. Antoine Davis and the others? That's the problem. Eddie's expression was grim. Antoine Davis is missing. His apartment's been cleared out. Neighbors say 2 men in suits came by 3 days ago, and Antoine left with them. Hasn't been seen since. Marcus felt ice in his stomach. Kowalski got to him. Maybe, or maybe Antoine went into hiding when he heard the investigation was moving forward. Eddie pulled out a folder. But I found 2 of the other survivors. Marcus Williams' mother, she kept all of her son's documents. And a guy named Jerome Foster who was injured in the same operation as Antoine. He's willing to talk, but he's scared. Can you bring Jerome here? David asked. Too risky, but I can set up a video call tomorrow. Get his testimony on record. After Eddie left, Marcus asked the question that had been bothering him. Dad, what happens after we release everything? Even if we expose Kowalski, even if Jordan's name is cleared, what happens to us? David was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe Kowalski gets arrested. Maybe he doesn't. Rich people with connections have a way of avoiding consequences. Maybe we're heroes. Maybe we're just the people who stirred up trouble. He looked at Marcus directly. But we'll be able to sleep at night knowing we did the right thing. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. Every sound outside the cabin made him jump. Wind in the trees sounded like footsteps. An owl's call sounded like a signal. He lay in the small bedroom's twin bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if Kowalski's men were out there in the darkness, watching, waiting. Day 3. The burner phone rang at 7 a.m. David answered on speaker. Jessica's voice was strained. We have a problem. Someone leaked the story to the press. Not our story, a counter story. It hit the internet an hour ago on multiple sites. What does it say? David demanded. It says Michael Jordan is trying to rehabilitate his image by creating a conspiracy theory. That he's hired investigators to manufacture evidence. That the gambling photos were real, and he's using his fame to rewrite history. Jessica paused. They're discrediting us before we can even release our evidence. Marcus felt panic rising. How did they know what we were planning? Bernie, David said flatly. He must have overheard something, or found something in my notebooks. Damn it, I should have been more careful. It gets worse, Jessica continued. The articles specifically name you, Mr. Chen. They're calling you a failed journalist with an obsession. They're saying you've been harassing Michael Jordan for years, trying to get him to support your theories. David's face went pale. They're destroying my credibility before we can release the proof. We need to move faster. Eddie's voice joined the call. He must have been with Jessica. Forget the 7-day timeline. We release everything tomorrow. Hit them before they can do more damage. We're not ready, Jessica protested. Dr. Tanaka needs another day for the report. We haven't verified all the witnesses. If we wait, they'll have time to plant more stories, discredit more sources, make it impossible for anyone to believe us, Eddie argued. We go tomorrow with what we have. Jordan needs to be part of the announcement, David said. Without him, it's just me making accusations. With him, it's a story people can't ignore. I'll call Jordan's people, Eddie said. Set up a press conference for tomorrow afternoon. Chicago, somewhere public. After the call ended, Lynn spoke for the first time that morning. "They're going to destroy us before we even have a chance." "No," David said firmly. "They're panicking. If they weren't worried, they wouldn't be trying to discredit us. They know we have something real." Marcus wanted to believe him, but the doubt was creeping in. What if no one believed them? What if Kowalski's counter-narrative was too strong? What if 5 years of investigation ended with them looking like conspiracy theorists and Jordan looking like a desperate celebrity? Day 4. The burner phone rang at 3 a.m. David answered groggily. Marcus heard him say "what?" in a tone that made Marcus sit up immediately. Then, "Oh God, when? Is she? Okay, we're coming." David hung up and looked at Marcus and Lynn with devastated eyes. "That was Eddie. Your mother's been taken." The world stopped. "What?" Lynn's voice was barely a whisper. "2 men grabbed her outside the hospital after her shift. Witnesses saw it happen but thought it was a family dispute. By the time security checked the cameras, they were gone." David was already pulling on his clothes. "They left a message with the security guard. Destroy all evidence and Chen gets his wife back." Marcus couldn't breathe. His mother, taken, because of their investigation, because they'd pushed too hard, moved too fast, threatened the wrong people. "We call the police," Lynn said, her nurse's training kicking in despite her fear. "We call the FBI. The FBI is compromised," David said. "Agent Moss was dirty, remember? And the Chicago police, we don't know who's working for Kowalski and who isn't. Then what do we do?" Marcus heard his own voice like it was coming from someone else, distant, shocked. The burner phone rang again. Different ringtone. Eddie had given them 2 numbers, one for him, one for Jordan. This was Jordan. David answered. "Hello? Chen, I heard. My people are already tracking her." Jordan's voice was controlled but urgent. "I've hired a private security team, former Secret Service, completely clean. They're better than the police, but we need to move fast." "They want us to destroy the evidence," David said. "I know, don't. Jordan, they have my wife, and if you destroy the evidence, they'll kill her anyway. Can't leave witnesses." Jordan's voice was hard. "I've seen how these people operate. The only leverage we have is going public. Once the story's out, killing her becomes more dangerous than letting her go." Marcus grabbed the phone from his father. "What if you're wrong? What if they kill her because we release the story?" "Marcus, I promise you, I will use every resource I have to find your mother. But destroying the evidence won't save her. These people don't make deals. They eliminate threats." Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to scream, wanted to destroy every piece of evidence they had if it meant getting his mother back safely. But a small, rational part of his brain knew Jordan was right. Lynn took the phone gently from Marcus. "Mr. Jordan, I'm David's wife, Marcus's mother, the woman you're telling us not to negotiate for." "Mrs. Chen." "No, let me finish. I've spent 5 years supporting this investigation. I've worked double shifts to keep our family afloat. I've watched my husband obsess over notebooks and my son grow up too fast. I did it because I believed it mattered." Her voice was steady, strong. "If you think going public is the right move, then do it. Don't let them use me as leverage. Don't let Coach Mills's death be for nothing." The phone was silent for a moment. Then Jordan said quietly, "You're a remarkable woman, Mrs. Chen." "Find my wife," Lynn said. "That's all I ask. Find her and bring her home." "I will. I promise you, I will." After the call ended, David pulled Lynn into his arms. She didn't cry. She was too strong for that, Marcus thought, too determined, but her hands were shaking. Marcus stood by the window, watching the dawn break through the pine trees. Somewhere in Chicago, his mother was being held by men who'd killed before and would kill again. Somewhere in Chicago, Dominic Kowalski thought he'd won, but he was wrong. Day 5. Eddie arrived at the cabin at noon with a laptop and a grim expression. Jordan's security team tracked the van that took her. It went to an industrial area on the south side, warehouse district. They're still watching, but they can't move in without risking her safety. "How many men?" David asked. "3 that they can confirm, maybe more inside the warehouse." Eddie opened the laptop. But here's the thing, the warehouse is owned by a shell company. Traced it back through 6 layers of corporate ownership. Guess who's at the top? Dominic Kowalski, Marcus said. Got it in one. Eddie pulled up building schematics. Former textile warehouse, 1 main entrance, 2 emergency exits, security cameras at every corner. They chose well, hard to approach without being seen. What about the police? Lynn asked. Can we give them the location anonymously? Kowalski probably has cops on his payroll, Eddie said. If we call it in, they might tip him off. He'd move her before anyone could respond. David stared at the warehouse schematic. What does Jordan's team recommend? They want to wait until after the press conference. Once the story breaks, Kowalski loses his leverage. Holding her becomes too risky. Every resource will be focused on finding her, and he won't be able to hide. Eddie looked uncomfortable. It sounds strategy, but it means leaving her there for another day, Marcus finished. No one spoke for a long moment. Finally, David said, We trust Jordan's people. We go ahead with the press conference tomorrow at 2 p.m. Dr. Tanaka's forensic report, Coach Mills's recordings, testimony from the survivors, Jordan's statement. Everything goes public at once. And Mom, Marcus asked, his voice breaking. Jordan's team moves in the moment the press conference starts. When Kowalski's attention is on the media, when he's scrambling to respond, they go in and get her. David looked at his son. It's the best chance we have. Marcus wanted to argue, wanted to demand they call the police, the FBI, the National Guard, anyone who might save his mother right now instead of tomorrow. But he understood the cold logic. Going in blind could get her killed. Waiting until Kowalski was distracted gave them the best odds. That didn't make it any easier. Day 6. The press conference was set for 2 p.m. at the Chicago Athletic Association Hotel. Public location, multiple exits. Jordan's security team would be positioned throughout the building. Dr. Tanaka arrived at the cabin at dawn with her completed forensic report. 80 pages of technical analysis proving the photographs were composites. Jessica came with her, carrying signed affidavits from Jerome Foster and Marcus Williams' mother. Where's Antoine Davis? David asked. Still missing, Jessica said. But we have enough without him. Jordan's statement, the forensic evidence, the survivor testimony, it's compelling. They reviewed everything one final time. The evidence was solid. The story was clear. Coach Raymond Mills had discovered an illegal recruitment operation. He'd contacted Michael Jordan for help. Dominic Kowalski had him killed and framed Jordan to discredit anyone Mills had spoken to. The FBI investigation was compromised. Tommy Brennan was coerced into distributing fake evidence. For 5 years, Jordan had stayed silent to protect witnesses. Now the truth was coming out. At 1 p.m., they drove to Chicago in 3 separate cars. Security protocols. If one car was ambushed, the others could escape. Marcus rode with Eddie, his stomach churning with anxiety. In a few hours, his mother would be free. Or she'd be dead. There was no middle ground. The hotel was already filling with reporters when they arrived. Word had leaked, carefully, intentionally leaked by Jessica, that Michael Jordan was making a major announcement about the 1993 gambling scandal. Every news outlet in Chicago had sent someone. National media was represented. Cameras were being set up in the conference room. Jordan arrived at 1:30, surrounded by security, wearing a dark suit and a determined expression. He saw Marcus and walked directly over. My team is in position at the warehouse. The moment I start speaking, they move in. Promise me you'll get her out, Marcus said. I promise I'll do everything possible. That's all I can promise. Jordan gripped Marcus's shoulder. Your mother is brave. She's strong. She's going to be okay. At 1:55, they took their positions in the conference room. Jordan at the podium, David, Dr. Tanaka, and Jessica at a table beside him. Marcus and Lynn sat in the front row. At exactly 2 p.m., Jordan stepped to the microphone. Thank you all for coming. 5 years ago, I was accused of being connected to the death of Coach Raymond Mills. Today, I'm here to tell you the truth about what really happened, and to expose the man who actually killed him. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. Jordan began speaking, his voice steady and clear, telling the story of Coach Mills's investigation, the recruitment operation, the young men who died. He showed the fake photographs on a large screen. Dr. Tanaka presented her forensic analysis. David played excerpts from Coach Mills's recordings. The room was silent except for the click of cameras and the scratch of pens on paper. Marcus's phone, a new burner Eddie had given him that morning, buzzed with a text. Eddie, team is moving in. Stay calm. Marcus gripped Lynn's hand. She squeezed back, both of them barely breathing. On the podium, Jordan was finishing his statement. And I stayed silent because I was told it would protect witnesses. I was wrong. Silence never protects anyone. It only protects the guilty. Today I'm calling on the Department of Justice to investigate Dominic Kowalski and his company. I'm calling on the Chicago Police Department to reopen the investigation into Coach Mill's death. And I'm asking anyone with information to come forward. No more silence, no more lies, just truth. The room erupted with questions, reporters shouting over each other. Jordan held up his hand. I'll take questions, but first, the conference room doors burst open. Marcus's heart stopped. 4 men in FBI jackets walked in, followed by 2 more in police uniforms. Leading them was a tall man in an expensive suit, maybe 60 years old, silver hair, cold eyes, Dominic Kowalski. Ladies and gentlemen, Kowalski said, his voice booming with authority, I'm here to set the record straight. These people are spreading lies about my company, about me, and about my business practices. I have obtained a court order. He held up papers, requiring them to cease and desist this defamatory press conference immediately. Jordan didn't move from the podium. On what grounds? On the grounds that every claim you've made is false. My company operates legally and ethically. We don't recruit children. We don't send civilians into war zones. And we certainly don't murder youth center directors. Kowalski smiled coldly. But perhaps most importantly, we don't kidnap people to silence investigations. He gestured and 2 of the FBI agents stepped aside. Marcus's mother walked into the room. She was disheveled, tired, but alive. Unharmed. Mom! Marcus jumped up, but Lynn held him back. Wait, she whispered. Something's wrong. David's mother walked to the podium and took the microphone from Jordan. I need to make a statement, she said, her voice shaking. No. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm David Chen's wife. For the past 2 days, I've been held at a federal facility, voluntarily, as part of an FBI investigation into this matter. The room exploded with noise, reporters shouting questions, cameras swinging to focus on her. I was never kidnapped, she continued. I was asked by the FBI to cooperate in a sting operation to expose the people spreading false accusations against Mr. Kowalski. I agreed because, she looked directly at her husband, because I wanted this obsession to end. Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. His mother. Working with Kowalski, working against them, but then she smiled just slightly, just for a second, and winked at him. And Marcus understood. She was lying. She was protecting them. But why? Marcus watched his mother at the podium, her hands gripping the edges so tightly her knuckles were white. She was lying. He knew she was lying, but the reporters didn't know that. The cameras didn't know that. They were recording every word, broadcasting it live to millions of people. Dominic Kowalski stood behind her, that cold smile still on his face, confident he'd won. But something was wrong. Marcus could feel it in the air, a tension that didn't match the situation. Jordan hadn't moved from his position beside the podium. David sat perfectly still, his eyes locked on his wife. Dr. Tanaka and Jessica hadn't reacted with shock or anger. They were waiting for something. Sarah Chen continued speaking, her voice carefully controlled. My husband has been obsessed with this conspiracy theory for 5 years. It's destroyed our family, our finances, our lives. When the FBI approached me and explained that Mr. Kowalski was considering legal action for defamation, I agreed to help them prove that these accusations were baseless. Mrs. Chen, a reporter called out, are you saying your husband manufactured evidence? I'm saying... Sarah paused, and in that pause, Marcus saw her eyes flick to the left, toward the conference room side entrance. I'm saying that the truth is more complicated than my husband believes. The side door opened. A man walked in, tall African-American, probably late 20s, wearing a suit but moving with military precision. His left sleeve was pinned up, empty. He was missing his left arm. Antoine Davis. Marcus recognized him from the photos in Coach Mills' files. The survivor, the witness who disappeared. Kowalski's smile faltered. Antoine walked directly to the podium, moving past Kowalski and the FBI agents. He took the microphone from Sarah Chen, and she stepped aside immediately, moving away from Kowalski, closer to David. "My name is Antoine Davis," the man said, his voice strong and clear. 3 years ago, I was 17 years old. I signed a contract with Kowalski Security Solutions. I thought I was going to be a bodyguard. Instead, they sent me to Somalia, put me in the middle of a firefight. When I got shot and lost my arm, they left me to die. The room was dead silent now. For 5 years, I've been hiding, afraid that if I spoke out, they'd finish what they started. But 3 days ago, someone found me. Someone who promised me protection, promised me justice, promised me that this time, the truth would actually matter. Antoine turned and looked directly at Michael Jordan. I didn't want to believe him. I'd been promised things before, but he showed me evidence. Recordings from Coach Raymond Mills. Proof that my story mattered. Proof that the other kids who died mattered. Antoine's voice cracked slightly. So here I am, ready to tell the truth, ready to testify in court, ready to make sure Dominic Kowalski faces justice. Kowalski's face had gone from confident to furious. He stepped forward. This man is lying. He was injured in an accident during a training exercise. In Somalia, Antoine interrupted. A country where your company claimed to only be doing security consulting. But we weren't protecting anyone. We were fighting. For money. For whoever paid your company the most. One of the FBI agents stepped forward. The one who'd been standing closest to Kowalski. He pulled out a badge and Marcus saw it was different from the others. This one was real. Mr. Kowalski, I'm Special Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI. We've been investigating your company for 6 months, following new evidence that came to light. She gestured to the other agents, who were now surrounding Kowalski. These gentlemen aren't FBI. They're private security you hired to make this performance more convincing. Real FBI agents are currently executing search warrants at your company headquarters, your home, and 3 of your warehouse facilities. Kowalski's face went pale. You can't. I have lawyers. You'll need them. Agent Torres pulled out handcuffs. Dominic Kowalski, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder in the death of Raymond Mills, for operating an illegal recruitment and mercenary operation, for fraud, and for kidnapping Sarah Chen. I didn't kidnap anyone. She just said... She lied, Agent Torres said simply, to buy us time. While you were focused on this press conference, my team was gathering evidence from all your facilities, including the warehouse where you held Mrs. Chen for 2 days. Sarah Chen stepped forward, and Marcus saw bruises on her wrist where ropes had been. Her clothes were dirty. She'd been held, really held, just like they'd thought. Every word I just said was a lie, Sarah announced to the cameras. I was kidnapped. I was held against my will. And I agreed to come here and read a statement Mr. Kowalski's lawyer wrote because they threatened to kill my family if I didn't. Kowalski lunged toward her, but the agents grabbed him. 2 of his fake FBI agents tried to run, but were tackled by Jordan's security team, who'd been positioned throughout the room. The conference room erupted in chaos, reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing, real FBI agents flooding in through multiple doors. Marcus ran to his mother. She caught him in a fierce hug, and he felt her shaking, from fear, from relief, from exhaustion. Lynn was there too, the 3 of them holding each other while chaos swirled around them. David reached them, pulling all 3 into his arms. You're okay. Thank God you're okay. I wasn't sure the plan would work, Sarah said, her voice muffled against David's shoulder. Agent Torres said if I could get him to bring me to the press conference, if I could make him feel confident enough to show up in person, they'd have him. But if he'd suspected, don't think about that. David held her tighter. You were so brave, so incredibly brave. Michael Jordan appeared beside them, his own security forming a protective circle. Mrs. Chen, are you all right? Do you need medical attention? I'm fine, bruised and exhausted, but fine. Sarah looked up at Jordan. Thank you. If you hadn't found Antoine, if you hadn't convinced Agent Torres to reopen the investigation. Thank your husband, Jordan said. He's the one who never gave up. 5 years. Most people would have quit after 5 months. Agent Torres approached, her badge now clearly visible. Mr. Chen, I need to apologize. 5 years ago, Agent Richard Moss compromised the original investigation. He was on Kowalski's payroll. When he was transferred to Washington, the case was buried. It wasn't until 3 months ago, when new leadership reviewed cold cases, that I was assigned to look at it again. 3 months, David said. You've been investigating for 3 months and never contacted us? We couldn't risk it. Kowalski had too many sources. We knew someone at the South Side Gazette was feeding him information. Torres glanced around. Where is Bernard Kowalski? Not here, Eddie said, appearing from the crowd. He held up his phone. Just got word. Bernie Kowalski turned himself in at the FBI field office 20 minutes ago. Said he wants to cooperate, testify against his brother, make a deal. Bernie always was the smarter one, Torres said. Family loyalty only goes so far when you're facing prison time as an accessory. Jessica pushed through the reporters to reach them. Dr. Tanaka's giving interviews. She's already trending on Twitter. The forensic analysis of the fake photographs is going viral. David looked at Jordan. When did you know? When did you know the FBI was really investigating? 2 months ago, Agent Torres contacted me directly, showed me her credentials, proved she was legitimate. She'd found Coach Mills's recordings. The FBI had them in evidence all along, just buried by Moss. She asked me to cooperate with a new investigation. Jordan smiled slightly. I told her I'd help on one condition, that we also expose what was done to me, that the fake photographs and the smear campaign became part of the public record. She agreed. So this press conference, the timing, was coordinated with the FBI, Torres confirmed. We needed Kowalski to make a move. As long as you were quietly investigating, he could monitor and counter you. But the moment you went public, he'd have to respond. We gambled that his ego wouldn't let him hide, that he'd show up to defend himself. Marcus looked at his mother. But they really kidnapped you. That wasn't part of the plan. No, that was real. Sarah touched the bruises on her wrists. When they took me, I thought we'd miscalculated, thought they were going to kill me. But then one of the guards got sloppy, left his phone where I could see it. I saw text messages from Kowalski about bringing me to the press conference, using me to discredit you. That's when I realized we could turn it around. You got a message to Agent Torres? David asked. Through Jordan's security team. They were tracking the warehouse. I managed to signal them through a window. Morse code spelled out with a flashlight I found. Old-fashioned, but effective. Sarah smiled weakly. Nursing school required us to learn it for emergency situations. Never thought I'd actually use it. A reporter pushed through. Mr. Jordan, can you comment on... Jordan's security stepped in, but Jordan held up a hand. One statement, then we're done for today. He faced the cameras directly. For 5 years, I've lived under a cloud. People thought I was connected to a good man's death. They thought my gambling led criminals to Coach Raymond Mills. They thought I retired because I couldn't handle the scandal. He paused. None of that was true, but I couldn't say that without endangering witnesses, without compromising an investigation I was told was ongoing. Turns out I was lied to by a corrupt agent working for the very man who killed Coach Mills. Jordan's voice grew stronger. Today, the truth is public. Coach Raymond Mills was a hero who died trying to protect kids. David Chen is a journalist who sacrificed everything for integrity. Sarah Chen is a woman who risked her life to bring a criminal to justice. And Antoine Davis and the others who survived Kowalski's operation are brave enough to testify. He looked directly into the cameras. To everyone who believed the lies about me, I understand. The evidence looked real. The story made sense. But this is why we need journalists like David Chen. People who ask questions, people who look deeper, people who don't just accept the easy narrative. The press conference dissolved into individual interviews. Dr. Tanaka explaining the forensic analysis, Antoine Davis describing his experience with Kowalski's company, Jessica discussing how they'd tracked down witnesses. Marcus found himself sitting in a quiet corner with his parents and Lynn, away from the chaos. They sat in exhausted silence for several minutes. "It's over," Sarah finally said. "It's really over." "The trial will take months," David said. "Maybe years. Kowalski has resources. He'll fight." "But we have the truth," Marcus said. "And the truth won." David looked at his son with pride. "Yes, it did." Eddie joined them, grinning. "You should see what's happening online. Jordan Truth is trending worldwide. People are apologizing to Jordan, praising you, demanding investigations into other private military companies. This is huge." "What about Bernie Kowalski?" Lynn asked. "Is he going to prison?" "Depends on his cooperation. Torres says if he testifies against his brother, if he provides evidence, they might offer him a deal." Eddie shrugged. "Family loyalty is complicated." Marcus thought about Mr. Kowalski at the Gazette, the donuts on Friday, the questions about Marcus's schoolwork. Had he known what his brother was doing? Had he known people were dying? Or had he just been feeding information without understanding the consequences? Agent Torres approached again. "Mr. and Mrs. Chen will need detailed statements from both of you over the next few days. Marcus, too. Everything you remember, everyone you talked to, every piece of evidence you found." "Of course," David said. "Whatever you need." "There's something else." Torres pulled out a folder. "We found records at Kowalski's headquarters. He'd been monitoring your investigation from the beginning. Detailed notes on every person you contacted, every lead you followed. You got close several times. Close enough that he considered having you killed." Sarah's hand tightened on David's arm. "Why didn't he?" Marcus asked. "Because you were too visible. A journalist investigating a celebrity scandal. If you died suspiciously, it would have drawn attention. Better to monitor and counter you." Torres smiled slightly. "Which means your profile actually kept you safe. The more public you were about the investigation, the more dangerous it was for Kowalski to eliminate you." "Until we found real proof," David said. "Until you found real proof," Torres agreed. "That's when he had to act. Kidnapping Mrs. Chen was desperation. He knew you were close to going public." Michael Jordan returned, having finished his interviews. "Chen family, my security team is going to escort you home. Full protection for the next month, minimum, until we're sure there's no retaliation from Kowalski's people." "That's not necessary," David started. "It absolutely is necessary." Jordan's voice left no room for argument. "You've done enough. You've sacrificed enough. Let me do this. Let me make sure you're safe." Sarah looked at her husband. Some silent communication passed between them. Finally, David nodded. "Thank you." "Thank you," Jordan replied, "for believing in me when no one else did, for losing everything and not giving up, for being the kind of person who cares more about truth than career." They were escorted out through a back entrance, away from the reporters and cameras. 3 black SUVs waited, engines running. Professional security personnel, nothing like Kowalski's fake FBI agents, opened doors and checked sightlines. As they drove through Chicago, Marcus watched his city pass by the tinted windows. Everything looked the same. Same buildings, same streets, same people going about their lives. But everything was different now. The truth was out. His mother was safe. Michael Jordan's name was cleared. Coach Raymond Mills's death would be answered with justice. It had taken 5 years. It had cost them almost everything. But they'd won. That night, back in their small apartment with security guards posted outside, the Chen family sat together in the living room. No TV, no phones, just the 4 of them, processing everything that had happened. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. David pulled out his old Chicago Tribune business card, the one he'd been carrying for 5 years. He looked at it for a long moment, then set it on the coffee table. Now I write the story, the real story, every detail, every source, every piece of evidence. It's going to be a long piece, maybe a series, maybe a book." "The Tribune will publish it?" Lynn asked. "They've already called, offered me my old job back, with a promotion." David smiled slightly. "Turns out being right for 5 years makes you valuable." "Are you going to take it?" Marcus asked. David looked at Sarah, at Lynn, at Marcus. "I don't know yet. The Gazette is small, but it's honest. Mr. Patterson, the owner, never doubted me. I'd hate to leave him short-staffed. Maybe you do both, Sarah suggested. Write for the Tribune, but keep your connection to the Gazette. Bridge both worlds. Maybe, David agreed. Marcus stood and walked to his room. He pulled out his Michael Jordan jersey, number 23, still clean, still crisp. He'd kept it all these years through doubt and mockery and confusion. He put it on. It fit perfectly now. When he came back to the living room, his family smiled. How does it feel? Lynn asked. Right, Marcus said simply. It feels right. 3 days later, Marcus returned to school. He walked through the hallways with his head up, wearing his Jordan jersey. A few students stared, a few whispered, but more came up to him, apologizing, congratulating, asking questions about what it was like. Derek Phillips approached him at lunch, looking uncomfortable. Hey, Marcus, I'm sorry for the things I said about your dad, about you. Marcus could have been angry, could have held a grudge, but he'd learned something in the past 5 years. Holding on to anger was exhausting. Forgiveness was easier. Thanks, Derek. I appreciate that. Your dad's kind of famous now. People are calling him a hero. He's always been a hero, Marcus said. People just didn't know it yet. That afternoon, Marcus had basketball practice. His coach pulled him aside before they started. Chen, I heard what happened, what your family went through. I just want you to know, I always believed in you, in your father, even when others didn't. Marcus wasn't sure that was entirely true, but he appreciated the sentiment. Thank you, Coach. You planning to keep playing basketball after everything? Marcus looked at the court, the place where he'd fallen in love with the game, where he'd dreamed of being like Michael Jordan. Yeah, I'm going to keep playing. Good, because you're good enough for college. Maybe not Division I, but there are schools interested. Coaches have been calling, asking about you. The publicity doesn't hurt. Marcus smiled. I'm not playing for publicity. I'm playing because I love it. That's the right answer. 2 weeks later, the Chen family was invited to a private dinner at a Chicago restaurant. Michael Jordan had arranged it, just the four of them, Jordan, Antoine Davis, and Mrs. Eleanor Washington, Coach Mills's mother. Mrs. Washington was elderly and frail, but her eyes were bright. She hugged each of them as they arrived. You did it, she said to David. You kept your promise. You found the truth about my son. He made it easy, David replied. He documented everything. He was a thorough, careful investigator. He was a good man, Mrs. Washington said, and now people will remember him that way. Not as the victim in some scandal, but as a hero who tried to save children. Over dinner, they talked about the future. Antoine was enrolled in college. Jordan was paying his tuition. He wanted to become a social worker, to help kids like the ones Coach Mills had helped. Mrs. Washington was working with the city to rebuild the Southside Youth Center. They're naming it after Raymond, she said, tears in her eyes. The Raymond Mills Center for Youth Excellence. Mr. Jordan has donated the money for construction. Jordan shrugged. It's what Coach Mills would have wanted. What about you? Sarah asked Jordan. How does it feel, having your name cleared? Jordan was quiet for a moment. Honestly, it's strange. I spent 5 years carrying that weight, knowing people thought I was connected to a man's death, knowing I couldn't defend myself without endangering others. He looked around the table. Now that the truth is out, I keep waiting for the relief to hit, but mostly I just feel tired and grateful and determined to make sure Coach Mills's work continues. The trial starts in 3 months, Eddie said. He'd been invited as well, having been integral to the investigation. Kowalski's lawyers are already filing motions, trying to get evidence thrown out. It's going to be a fight. We've been fighting for 5 years, David said. 3 more months won't break us. After dinner, as they were leaving, Jordan pulled Marcus aside. I hear you're looking at colleges. Yes, sir. I mean, yes. Northwestern, maybe. Or University of Illinois. You thinking about journalism? Following your father? Marcus had been thinking about exactly that. Maybe. I like telling stories. I like finding the truth. Your father changed my life, gave me back my reputation, my legacy. Jordan pulled out a business card and handed it to Marcus. This is my personal number, the real one. If you ever need anything, a reference for college, help with tuition, advice about handling pressure, you call me. Understood? Marcus took the card with trembling hands. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jordan replied, for believing in me, for standing by your father, for being exactly the kind of person this world needs more of. 6 weeks later, Marcus opened an acceptance letter from Northwestern University. Full scholarship. The admissions letter specifically mentioned his essay about integrity and truth, about watching his father sacrifice everything to expose corruption, about learning that the right thing is rarely the easy thing. He'd written about Coach Raymond Mills, about Michael Jordan, about his mother's courage and his father's determination. He'd written about learning that heroes aren't perfect, but they're still worth believing in. The scholarship came from an anonymous donor. Marcus suspected it was Jordan, but when he called to ask, Jordan neither confirmed nor denied it. Good people deserve good opportunities, was all Jordan said. Accept it with gratitude and pay it forward someday. 3 months after the press conference, the trial began. Dominic Kowalski faced multiple charges: conspiracy to commit murder, operating an illegal mercenary operation, kidnapping, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Bernie Kowalski testified against his brother in exchange for a reduced sentence. His testimony was devastating. Years of evidence about how Dominic had corrupted police, bribed officials, and eliminated threats. Agent Richard Moss, the corrupt FBI agent, was arrested and charged as an accessory. His betrayal of the original investigation was exposed in detail. The trial lasted 6 weeks. The Chen family attended every day, sitting in the front row, watching justice unfold. On a cold November afternoon, the jury returned their verdict: guilty on all counts. Dominic Kowalski was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. Agent Moss received 20 years. Bernie Kowalski, in exchange for his cooperation, received 5 years probation and community service. After the verdict, reporters surrounded the Chen family on the courthouse steps. David made a brief statement. 5 years ago, Coach Raymond Mills died trying to protect children. Today, the man responsible for his death has been brought to justice. It took too long. It cost too much. But the truth prevailed. He looked directly at the cameras. This case proves that investigative journalism matters, that asking questions matters, that refusing to accept easy narratives matters. I hope other journalists remember that. Marcus stood beside his father, wearing his Michael Jordan jersey despite the cold. A reporter asked him, "Marcus, how does it feel to finally have closure?" Marcus thought about the question, about 5 years of investigation, about his mother's kidnapping, about Derek Phillips's mockery, about all the nights he doubted whether any of it mattered. "It feels like hope," he said finally. "Hope that truth matters. Hope that good people can win. Hope that even when things seem impossible, if you keep pushing, if you keep believing, justice can happen." That evening, the Chen family returned to their small apartment. Security was gone now. Kowalski was in prison, his organization dismantled, the threat neutralized. David sat at his desk and opened a new document on his laptop. The Raymond Mills story, 5 years fighting for truth. He began typing. Sarah returned to the hospital, back to her normal shifts, no longer working doubles to make ends meet. Lynn went back to being a regular teenager, college applications, basketball practice, hanging out with friends. And Marcus hung his Michael Jordan jersey back in his closet, clean, crisp, perfect, next to his Northwestern acceptance letter and a framed photograph of Coach Raymond Mills surrounded by smiling children. The investigation was over. The truth had won, but the lessons would last forever. Sometime later, Marcus Chen stood in the lobby of the Chicago Tribune, his Northwestern journalism degree freshly framed in his new apartment, his first day as an investigative reporter, following in his father's footsteps. David Chen now ran the investigative unit, promoted after his expose of the Kowalski case won a Pulitzer Prize. He stood waiting for Marcus with a smile. "Ready for your first day?" "Ready," Marcus said. "Good, because I have a case for you. Small story, probably nothing, but something about it doesn't add up." David handed him a folder. "A businessman in Springfield, very connected. Some questions about his company's practices. Might be nothing, Might be something. Marcus took the folder and smiled. Guess I should start digging. That's my boy. As Marcus walked to his new desk, he passed a photograph on the wall. The entire investigative team from 5 years ago. David Chen, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Jessica Torres, Eddie Ochoa, and Michael Jordan, standing in front of the newly rebuilt Raymond Mills Center for Youth Excellence. Truth had prevailed once, and Marcus Chen was ready to make sure it prevailed again. So that's the incredible true story of how the Chen family and Michael Jordan fought for 5 years to expose the truth and bring a dangerous criminal to justice. It proves that no matter how powerful the lie, truth always finds a way to win when brave people refuse to give up. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching this video from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. We love connecting with viewers from all around the world. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We're here to spread kindness, share powerful true stories, and remind everyone that doing the right thing always matters. And don't go anywhere yet. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another amazing story that will touch your heart. Thanks for watching, and remember, always stand up for the truth, no matter what it costs.